Oh, that's funny.
But my husband's really into it too, so it makes it easier. So
That's cool.
makes it easier to get people on board with the over the topness. I saw a few people joining the old link, which was the one that Jamie had set up previously. So,
Mm,
like going back and forth, trying to make sure people know to go through the Zoom, not the Teams.
gotcha. Yeah, the first one when I first clicked on it, it tried to open up Teams, and I'm like, oh, that's not right. So
Yeah, so we may have
cool.
a little bit of confusion in the
Trickle.
beginning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, we can in a
Here,
couple minutes we'll
really
call
quick,
roll.
can I ask, is the link on the homepage?
Let's
I think
see.
that they're posting it. So give me just
Oh,
a
okay. Okay. I had
moment.
staff asking, sorry.
Sure, let me check. I don't know how quickly that pops up. It's as soon as it's posted. They have to go and put it on the agency site. So, um, Renee, I know you might be doing a few things right now, but just if you can hear me, do you know if ISS is or Chris is adding it?
I sent him the link, so he should be posting it to the website.
Oh, got it. I see.
Looks like he's working on the link now, so it should be available shortly.
Thank you.
Can you?
I hope he's putting the Zoom link because he's in the Teams chat. So just making sure. Should be fine.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if it's posted.
Which one? That one? Okay.
I'll double check it real quick.
I just have it off of there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We'll just give it another 1 or 2 minutes just to see.
Okay.
If people are,
or is that's the YouTube one?
It's working.
And then this is the one, and then that's the one. Or okay.
Yeah, I pulled up the live broadcast and I can see myself, so I'm feeling good.
But I guess so I want it on, I guess, because they're gonna start.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing? The feedback from there? Okay,
you're not,
so I don't.
You're not muted, Renee.
So I can hear him. Okay.
Yeah, and you have to turn the live. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't. Okay, that's what I want. Okay. 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 All right.
I'll just give it 1 more minute.
Okay. Is it displaying or is it not showing?
We can see the PowerPoint that says meeting will begin at 9:30, and then I just checked the broadcast and it's working. So
okay.
I believe we can just move forward and we'll get started.
Okay, yeah, so they can see it on the broadcast and everything. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Renee. Okay, well, we will call this meeting of the Financial Advisor Committee to order. Thank you all so much for coming today. I am Millette Leafgreen. I'm at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, and I am the chair of the committee this year. I want to start. Well, first we'll do the roll call. And make sure we get that recorded, and then we'll just go through some housekeeping stuff. So I'll just go down the list. If you can unmute and say here or hi or something, I would appreciate it. And we'll try to get through this. Rochelle.
Here.
Cecilia.
Here.
Leah.
here. Sorry, I was on mute.
Deshay,
Here.
Jackie,
Here.
Mary,
Good morning.
Heather,
Here.
Michelle,
Here.
Jackie,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Gabby,
Here.
Linda,
Here.
Rebecca, okay, Erica,
Here.
Tanya,
Here.
all right, and Lisa. I know Lisa potentially had a conflict today.
I got a decline on her confirmation.
Okay, thanks, Renee. Tevian,
Here.
Beth,
Here.
Amy,
Here.
Gilbert,
Here.
Rachel,
I think she also had a conflict.
Okay.
A final, yeah.
oh, gotcha. Thank you. I'm sorry. I think I saw that. And then Denise.
Here.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. So I just want to go through a few things, couple reminders. Remember to keep yourself muted when you're not sharing, but please don't, let that keep you from sharing. If you have a comment or you have a question or you want to join in the discussion, please don't hesitate to unmute and join right in. We will use the raise hand feature, so I will be on the lookout for that. And Renee and Leah, if you can help me on the lookout for that. If someone raises their hand and I don't see it, just let me know. Do try to keep your cameras on as much as you can. I understand that's not always feasible, particularly if you're wearing multiple hats today and you're maybe being interrupted. But please do try to keep your camera on if you are able to. Remember that we are live streaming on YouTube. So if your camera is on, whatever you do is being seen by lots of people. So just keep that in mind. I do also, I neglected to welcome everyone who is watching us on the live stream. We're very, very glad that you're here and we appreciate your participation in this important event. We have an agenda that by our estimates should take us through about 1 o'clock, depending on, how quickly or how long some of the items take. It may be a little bit earlier, a little bit later. The current plan is for us to power through until then and not take a formal lunch break. We will take breaks through the morning when we all need a chance to stretch our legs and whatnot, but we will just go ahead and get through hopefully all of the meeting agenda items and then be completed by 1 or 1:30, hopefully. So just FYI on that. Our next agenda item is to consider and approve the meeting minutes from our September meeting. So you should have those in your handouts that Renee sent out, and they are available on the FAAC website. So does anyone have any questions, concerns, corrections, anything that didn't make it into the minutes or something that needs to be adjusted? Okay, if we don't have any corrections, then could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
That was Rachel?
Rochelle.
Right?
Yeah.
Rochelle, sorry, I'm getting my R's mixed up. I got a Rachel and a Rochelle. So thank you, Rochelle, and a second for that, please.
I second it.
All right, oops.
I think that was Jackie Kelly. Was that right?
Ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Jackie. All right, minutes are approved. Third agenda item today is Leah is going to go through some prior business, which I know one of those items is to settle on our date for the March meeting.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, at the last meeting, we didn't come up with anything that warrants going through any prior business that had major issues other than, like you just brought up, the March meeting. So last time we had kind of gone back and forth on the proposed dates, and which are in the meeting minutes. So we can have that up to look at those. Let me see if I can pull them up, because I don't think I had them up at the time. Give me just a minute. But really, it was the March date. And if you recall, spring break is wedged in there for a lot of different either ISDs or schools. So we're trying to find the best date in March on a Thursday that will work for the majority of the committee. We can't obviously find one that's going to work well, but if there's a spring break that falls on most people's calendar, then we won't do that one. But we're trying to come to an agreement today, so that way we can get everything scheduled for next year. Once we have those dates, we'll get all the meetings, set up in advance. That way we're not scrambling to get them on your calendar. Let me pull up the dates that we did have.
So I think we, the date that I jotted down several of the dates that were brought up for March, and the one that seemed to get the most traction was March 7th. And I know that there was somebody who, that wasn't going to work, or they had a spring break or some other conflict. But I do, as Leah said, it's very difficult to find a date that works for everyone. So if anyone has any feedback about March 7th, that, you won't be able to attend, or that's, not a good time for you, please do let us know. Otherwise, we'll agree on that date for the March meeting. And just as a reminder, the other meetings which we did agree on were, let's see, June 6th, September 12th, and December 5th. Just to give you another, I know I need more than one opportunity to get those on my calendar. Gilbert, you had a comment?
Is the meeting planned for in-person or virtual?
Virtual. Good question. Thank you, Gilbert. We're all virtual this year. So we are, so it is a virtual meeting in March, June, and September.
Wanted to clarify, South by Southwest in Austin
yeah.
that week. Actually, the transition from South by EDU to Interactive starts that week.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we don't want to be in Austin right then.
Or you do.
Or you do want to be in Austin. You absolutely want to be in Austin then. Okay.
You don't want to be in Austin traffic. You don't want to be in Austin traffic that week. But
yes, you don't want to be trying to get somewhere. So, okay, great. That's helpful. Anything else that we need to be aware of for March 7th, or we will settle on that date? And remember, if you can't make a meeting, that's okay. If you miss 2 in a row, then there are some rules written in about that. But if you do need to miss the March meeting, that's certainly something we understand. Okay, I don't see any other hands up or discussion, so I think we'll call that done. March 7th. Is there anything else we need? I think you said that's all the prior business we had listed, Leah.
Yeah, just circling back to, just because that falls on spring break, and then the next one's in the summer, and there's always something going on. So you hit on this, I think, in the orientation for new members and everything else, just throwing it out there that if you miss 2 in a row, you're off the committee. So speak now so that we can make sure it works well for most people. And I mean, if something comes up, that's just life. Things happen and other commitments come up, but just throwing that out there that since we only meet 4 times a year, these dates are pretty important so that we can have a committee that has these dialogues and can be productive. So Denise?
Tell me the June date again, please.
June the 6th.
Right before my birthday.
All right, we'll have cake virtually. I don't know how we do that, but we'll figure it out. Okay, great. So March 7th, June 6th, September 12th, and December 5th. And we'll make sure to send those out again, just to make, now that we've settled on all of them, we'll send you out an updated list.
And we'll also-
Oh,
sorry, Millette.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Leah.
And we plan to send out all 4 meeting invites probably at the beginning of the year, not, immediately, but we'll go ahead and set up the calendar
That's great.
invite. That way it's on your calendar. Nobody's going to block that spot, but definitely just mark your calendar mentally so that you remember.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That's perfect. Thanks, Leah. Okay, right on track. So our next agenda item is external relations. And I have not looked to see if John is on the phone. If John is with us.
I am here.
Well, thank you. So John, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. John Wyatt, Senior Director of External Relations at the Coordinating Board. So I'm going to be remarkably brief in terms of a legislative update, because right now is probably the quietest time of the legislative calendar. As you probably know, the legislature recently concluded their 4th special session of the interim. The governor had called them into special session multiple times, primarily to address the issue of public school vouchers. And ultimately, the legislature in its most recent session did not pass legislation on that topic. It is unclear whether the governor will call them back again for another special session. Certainly not going to happen, I'd imagine, until after the new year. But he did have some comments earlier that indicated this might have been the last session. But yeah, he's the governor. He can call them back into special session for 30 days at a time at his discretion. So that's where the special sessions stand. Really, kind of after the start of the new year is when the legislature is really going to start looking forward to the next legislative session. As you know, they meet every 2 years in January. So this coming year will be the prep for that next session. And kind of the major thing that we'll see early next year is the Speaker of the House and Lieutenant Governor will announce their interim charges. So interim charges are directives to legislative committees to look at, investigate, and consider specific topics that the legislature may wish to address in the next legislative session. So the Senate Education Committee, which includes the Subcommittee on Higher Education, the House Higher Education Committee will receive specific issues and specific questions that they are charged to look into. Generally, it'll be over the late spring and summer that those committees will hold what are called interim hearings. So the members will come back to Austin. They will invite testimony from potentially institutions, from the coordinating board, from stakeholders that have information and perspective on those interim charges. So we think it's very likely and it's very common for us as an agency to be asked to provide testimony, to provide data and information that can help inform the committees in their consideration of those interim charges. And then ultimately those committees will produce their interim reports. And those are the conclusions and potentially any recommendations that they have to the legislature for policies that should be enacted as a result of their interim charges. So again, that kind of will unfold. Usually they wait until after the primaries in March to really kind of begin that process. So that'll be March and fall of next year. Something else will be in the works over the next year is the development of our agency's legislative appropriations request. So generally that is due to the legislature in the summer. And we will be working internally. We will be consulting with institutions, with stakeholders to submit that information to the legislature in terms of our budget request. And as the members of this committee are well aware, one of the items that we as an agency have always prioritized has been financial aid and ensuring that the state continues to invest in a robust system of financial aid to ensure that students are able to access and be successful in higher education. That's really all I have right now. Again, we're kind of at that lull between wrapping up the last session and looking forward to the next session. But I would be happy to answer any questions.
You're on mute.
Thanks. Any questions for John?
Gilbert has his hand up.
Oh, Gilbert, thank you.
Mhm.
John, does the agency, aside from the LAR or maybe prior to submission of the LAR, is the agency making any kind of recommendations around interim charges, or do you engage directly with legislators if they have questions?
We do engage directly with legislators. So one thing that we do not do that we have done kind of in the past, and by now it's kind of way in the past, is make official legislative recommendations. So what we, with Commissioner Keller, have focused on is working with legislators, working with stakeholders to communicate needs, to communicate the perspectives from the higher education community, what they see, what they feel needs to be addressed, and then working with legislators to identify, what are their priorities? How can we help inform those decisions that legislators are going to have to make that are going to impact higher education? So really much more of a kind of a working with legislators. I do anticipate at those interim hearings, it's very likely that Commissioner Keller will be called to testify. Some of our senior staff may well be called to testify. And it's very common for us to be asked to provide data. So, that's that's our wheelhouse, is providing that kind of objective information and expertise to help the committee make the best decisions they can make.
Thank you, John.
Of course.
All right. Any other questions for John? All right. I don't see any. Thank you, John. We really appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Have a happy holidays.
All right. Great. All right. Next on the agenda, Charles will lead us in a discussion. Yeah. Hi, Charles. There you are. On the proposed rules.
Well, I wanted to just take time to talk through the proposed rules that have been proposed over the past couple months that are going to be taken to the board for adoption at the January meeting. Just to make sure I'm not going to walk through every single piece and read you the preambles and things like that, but wanted to mention the concepts that are going on with those, and potentially answer any questions that you might have about the different rules that are going. The first set of rules on the handout is in relation to the new FAST program, the Financial Aid for Swift Transfer. And that's a program that provides funding to institutions to help support their ability to offer dual credit courses to educationally disadvantaged students at no cost. Emergency rules were adopted for that program back in August in order to get the program started so that it could be operational this fall. And we have, I want to say it's over 50. I forget the exact number of institutions that chose to participate starting in the fall. We have more that are going to start participating in the spring, and we've already had additional institutions that have let us know that they do plan on starting in next year, next fall in the program. And we expected that because the program came about so fast. We knew that some people wouldn't have their systems in place to be able to figure out, okay, how do we cover all of the costs related to this? The rules that are going to be taken to the board for adoption primarily mimic the emergency rules. They have some edits to clarify so that some of the definitions are clearer on things. It also puts into place a clear indication of how the FAST tuition rate will be increased from year to year. So it pegs it to the consumer price index, so that way institutions can have a better prediction of what the FAST tuition rate is. And the FAST tuition rate serves two purposes. One, for institutions that choose to participate in the FAST program, the FAST tuition rate is the maximum tuition rate that they can charge any student enrolled in dual credit coursework, regardless of whether they're eligible for the no-cost funding. And then two, it serves as the funding rate that institutions are reimbursed or not reimbursed, but are provided funding. So for every credit that an eligible student enrolls in dual credit, an institution gets that amount of money, the FAST tuition rate, regardless of what their tuition rate is. So if they're charging, the FAST tuition rate is 55 this year per credit. If the institution is only charging $30 per credit, they still get $55 per credit in funding. And so it is a different type of financial aid program because it's not a grant specifically to the student. Like the state isn't, it's not like Texas grant where you then disperse it, or TEOG where you disperse it to the student. Instead, it's a funding source that goes to the institution that they can use in conjunction with other funding and working with ISDs to help ensure that the students are able to enroll in dual credit at no cost. So those are pretty much the specific, some of the specific changes. As I said, other pieces between the emergency rules and what we're adopting is to just provide greater clarity on that. I'm gonna, on the handout, I'm gonna skip the next one because I'm gonna come back to it later in conjunction with a later packet that was posted. But I wanted to talk next about several sets of rules that were posted in relation to negotiated rulemaking that happened with the Texas Educational Opportunity Grant Program. So this summer, we had negotiated rulemaking to look at what opportunities there were to create more flexibility within the TEOG program, in particular in relation to opening it up as much as possible to certificate programs that might not have been considered previously, as well as things that certificates or other I'm just coming up with certificate again, but credentials, that's the word I was looking for, through continuing education units and things like that, to open up the opportunities to use TEOG funding. We had a historic increase in TEOG funding this past year, with funding, the legislature increasing the funding by about, I think, 125%. And so wanting to make sure that institutions could utilize it. So we had a very successful negotiated rulemaking committee. It did end up we had to post 4 different sets of rules to the Texas Register because it touched on different places that we had to move things. And so you'll see on the handout that it changed some things in the general provision definitions, as well as changing some things in Texas grant. And you might be wondering, well, why would TEOG change Texas grant? The reason is because the definition for entering undergraduate student used to be in the general provisions, and it was the same for both Texas Grant and TEOG. Through negotiated rulemaking, the definition for TEOG changed. And so what we had to do was we had to take the definition out of the general provisions, put it back in verbatim into Texas Grant because it didn't change. And then we put the new definition into subchapter M for the TEOG. So sometimes it's just, how do you actually get to where you're trying to get to in the process of pushing things through. There was also a fourth packet because we took something out of one set of rules and created a whole new rule in subchapter M. And even if you're taking stuff verbatim and creating a new rule, it's a new packet that has to go to the Texas Register. But in terms of the TEOG, the main piece was really trying to provide a definition of certificate program to really acknowledge the role that certificate programs play in the state's goals for building a talent strong Texas, and then allowing the institutions to be able to utilize TEOG for that broadened definition of certificate. The negotiated rulemaking committee also increased the number of credit hours under which a student can be considered to be an entering undergraduate, to provide greater flexibility to acknowledge the variety of pathways that a student might take to get to the point where they can start an associate degree or a certificate program. So then we had to make some conforming changes because we realized that we didn't always acknowledge the equivalency between semester credit hours and continuing education units and the like. So a lot of the changes were just making sure all the words were in the right place. But that was the key thing, was really trying to make sure that we broadened that definition of certificate and that we allowed greater opportunity to enter into the TEOG program. Another key program that we issued rules for, and this was a whole new packet of rules, was the transfer grant program, the Texas Transfer Grant Program. Four-year institutions and HRIs will likely remember the transfer grant that we did with the GEAR funding, which was kind of a pilot program for what transfer grant program might look like. As I mentioned in, I think, the last FAC meeting, we had, during the GEAR funded pilot program, we piloted a centralized program where the agency was picking the recipients, and then the student could take it to whatever four-year institution. And then the legislature provided us state appropriations to create a program for this year, for this biennium. And we did move to the more standard structure we have of a block grant program. So mimicking the idea that we let you know what the eligibility requirements are, we give you an allocation of funding, and then you can go ahead and utilize that funding. This was a program that was brand new program, brand new funding, trying to get something in place so that institutions could make use of it. We know that the start of this program for this academic year is kind of late in the year, but we decided that rather than waiting and just having it apply to 24-25, we'd go ahead and get it started for spring 24, so that if institutions wanted to use the program in 24, spring and summer 24, they had the opportunity to. That if it can make a difference, great. And so we did, do our best to kind of build it around the same concepts that people are familiar with. It's, got a need component, you got to be a Texas resident, those same concepts so it wasn't like significantly, not that our programs aren't complicated, but not significantly complicated in a different way from our programs. We tried to mimic the same concept of the block grant programs, where we give you an allocation to utilize. We did try to, wherever we could, provide the greatest flexibility for institutions. So like with the satisfactory academic progress policy, it's just the policy that you use for your federal financial aid programs. So you don't have to have a different policy for this. It has basically the same hardship provisions and things like that. It is a unique program in that you have to have completed your associate's degree before transferring to the four-year institution or the HRI. So you do have to have completed that before transfer to be eligible for this program. It does overlap a bit with people who are eligible for Texas grant, going through the associate degree pathway for the Texas grant. So there are provisions that you can only get one of the programs. You can't get both Texas grant and transfer grant. We did receive a couple comments that we're working on providing greater clarity on those concepts of that, you need to have received the associate degree before you transfer, and some of those pieces of the puzzle. We did mimic, again, in the allocation concept, kind of followed the same concepts. We're using key indicators. We don't use in most of our allocation methodologies, we don't use every single eligibility component. I kind of pull out like the three that are most critical. Usually you're a resident, you have a certain level of need, you're enrolled in the right coursework or the right level of, 3/4 time or whatever, and we use that historical to move forward. And we mimic that same concept. The allocation is going to be based on, looking at the past year, number of students that were enrolled is undergraduate students and not yet received a bachelor's degree, were residents, were enrolled full time, and have a 9-month expected contribution. And you'll note by that, and let me just read this to make sure I'm saying the right thing. Yeah, you'll note that we don't put anything in the allocation formula of, having completed the associate degree before transferring, because we're just worried about getting money out to the institutions for then you to figure out who are the right people for it to go to. And so we didn't want to narrow it so far. We didn't want to try to mimic that we were only allocating four-year eligible students. We were more doing the concept of, here's a formula that proportionately allocates funds, and then you have the flexibility if if in a given year you grow how many people are transferring in that qualify, you've got the flexibility to work with that. So that's pretty much the Texas Transfer Grant Program. And let me just check one thing. My finger can't scroll fast enough. I was just trying to check what kind of comments we received, and we focused on, please provide clarity on that completion of associate degree. Texas Leadership Scholars program has that's a program that actually has a variety of components to it. It has mentoring, it has internships, it has, you know, a summer leadership conference. But there's one piece that, you know, is about the actual funding that institutions receive so that they can make the grant to cover the individual's housing and food. And so those rules were updated, and the primary update was just around the fact that this past legislative session, the legislature changed the program from being just at research and emerging research institutions to being at all public institutions. And so really just opening up the number of institutions that could choose to participate in the program. So that's really what those rules focused on. And then the Texas First program, and I'm sorry, I just totally blended two programs. It's the Texas First program that opened up from just the research and emerging research to all public institutions. And Texas First has both the diploma concept of it, which is the rules that had to change in Chapter 21, and it also has the scholarship component or the state credit that students receive, which is what's in Chapter 22. And that's what was updated to reflect the concepts of the more institutions being able to participate in the program and wanting to make sure that that was clear. We also try to do some things to provide some definitions around the academic year that's involved, because there were some questions of, okay, well, when, like if a student graduates mid-year, they graduate from high school in December, does that mean that their scholarship is only good for if they start spring and it's good through you know, summer and then ends, or is it, you know, eligible for the next academic year? And so trying to provide some clarification because of the fact that students might be finishing high school early mid-year. And that's the whole purpose of Texas First, is to encourage, you know, finishing up high school early and getting into college. So really trying to clean up those timelines and make it very clear to everyone about the timelines, as well as to acknowledge that change and expansion. We didn't get any comments on that one. And then finally is a program that's for working professionals who are out working in mental health professional shortage areas. And that program actually had multiple bills expanded in multiple ways. It increased the number of people that were eligible for the program. It allowed them to earn, you know, complete their service more quickly so that they could get their full eligibility more quickly. It changed some of the eligibility requirements so that things weren't as strict. And so really trying to make sure that the mental health professional rules take into account all these different changes from the three different bills to add the new, it added, what did it add? It added community-based mental health services, local mental health authorities, state hospitals, and Title I schools as eligible places to work. And it added licensed specialists in school psychology as eligible practice specialties. So it's kind of expanding both where you can work and the type of work that you can do. And when you do that, it then has all sorts of domino effect for the rest of the rules, to make sure that we're clear on how much can you get through these programs, what's the amount of time you need to work. There's a grandfathering provision. If you started the program before X date, you're under the old rules. If you are under the new date, you're under the new rules, which is so much fun to administer. But in the comments that we received were just to clarify some language in there. And so we're making sure that we get that done. So all of those are being taken to the board in January. If adopted by the board, they will become effective for they become effective 20 days after we post them to the Texas Register. And so wanted to make sure it's an unusually rule heavy board meeting in January, between the financial aid stuff and the other things we're doing, a lot of it related to the community college finance reform. It's something like a 4-page agenda this time round, and they're usually like a page and a half. But there are just so many rules post-session, and we'll still have more rules coming. And I know that Leah is working on developing the best way that we can help ensure that that these rules get proposed, so that you can take a look at them, so that you can comment on them where necessary. And I do want to acknowledge that the comments that we do receive, they are read, they're very helpful. The rules are better for the comments that we receive, because it's perspectives that I haven't worked in an aid office in almost 9 years, so I might not remember all the nuances, or quite frankly, the nuances are just different than I'm remembering. So your comments are very much appreciated, and they really do help us improve. So, Gilbert, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, just a question on the proposed TEOG rule changes to cover workforce credentials. I'm curious about the limitations, if there are any limitations on the credentials that they are able to fund when it comes to career workforce training, or do institutions have discretion? I understood there was going to be alignment to credentials of value. So I was curious about the limitations. What is or isn't considered a credential of value? And is there institutional discretion, or is it prescribed by the board?
Yep. So for this round, this negotiated rulemaking, where we landed was an indication that level 1 and level 2 certificates, occupational skills awards, and then any other credentials of value that are defined over in chapter 13, and I'm trying to quickly see which subchapter within chapter 13 that is. I don't know if I can find it fast enough. Where is it? Oh, that's why I can't find it, because it's about to be adopted. And so it's the chapter that outlines credential of value. And so it gives very specific things that already exist. The level 1 certificates, the level 2 certificates, and the occupational skills awards. And part of putting that into the rule was to help make sure everyone realized, yes, you can use it for all these different pieces of the puzzle, because some of the feedback we got was that, some schools didn't realize you could use it for these different pieces. They thought they could, just do level 2 or something like that. And then, opening it up that with the, definition of credential of value, if the institution can demonstrate that the person's enrolled in a credential of value, regardless of whether it's an academic credit, semester credit hour, or if it's in, a workforce education, continuing education approach, that then it is, it does count for the TEOG program. And we tried to make sure we touched every reference that it's, semester credit hour or its equivalency, to make it clear to everyone that it's not just the semester credit hour programs, but it is those programs that can be converted via equivalency.
So Charles, just to clarify, does that mean if the board adopts the proposed rules in January, will that impact student qualifications or eligibility to receive funding under the 23-24 aid cycle, or will it be 24-25 or both?
23-24. So starting with this spring semester, institutions participating in the TEOG program can begin utilizing the expanded qualification. It's a little late, we admit. Ideally you would have had all of this in the fall to package for the spring, but just timing of when things pass in the legislature and the like, but we did want to get it in place, much like the Texas Transfer Grant Program. We wanted to at least get it in place so that once that rule becomes effective 20 days after it's posted in the Texas Register, institutions can go out and utilize the funding that they have to provide additional funding to students that now qualify for the program. And that was definitely feedback we heard was, given how much more money institutions have for the TEOG program, because everyone's allocations more than doubled, there was okay, please also make sure that there's ways that we can use this money. And so we didn't want to delay any more than we had to in getting that opened up for folks.
Thank you.
Gabby.
Yes. Also, continuing with the TEOG for the eligibility for the continuing education programs, are this basic requirements are still going to be the same? We still have to make sure that they have a high school diploma? Do we still have to make sure that they have not earned a certain number of hours maybe under the continuing education program, or I mean similar?
Everything else stays the same. So you do have to do some conversion, because statutorily nothing changed.
Okay.
We were just via rulemaking able to clarify that yes, this does include these other pieces. By including these other pieces, then there's conversions that need to happen because there's a maximum number of credit hours, and you do, if you're going to be utilizing this for individuals earning workforce credentials, you do need to have a way of converting what they do towards your satisfactory academic progress policy, to have something to show. We leave that to the institutions to figure out. We do give a definition of what the equivalency is. In terms of that, it's a 1.6 to 1 ratio in terms of the credit hour to continuing education unit equivalency. But you do need to have something in place because nothing in statute changed, and we can't ignore statute. We can only provide the clarity and the interpretation of the statute.
Oh, well, might not be able to use as much. We do have quite some students in continuing education program, but they didn't finish their high school equivalency. So if that's still a requirement, that's going to be a barrier. Just for some of them.
I think that might be, as opposed to using time here, it might be useful to set up a time to talk with our financial aid services area to make sure we're on the same page as to that piece that you're talking about, of that. So so that we can learn how you're kind of taking the rule and converting it into how you check your high school equivalency. So yeah, give us a call and we can try to work through those things.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chad, it's Renee. There's a question in the chat. It says, now that we are working with SAI and not EFC, when will the guidelines be released for Texas Grant?
I'm not. Let me start basic with that answer, and then whomever put it in the chat can tell me whether or not I came close. Back like I think either 3 or 6 months ago, we updated the definition of EFC in the rules, and the definition of EFC in the rules for all of the financial aid programs is that it is a measure utilized to calculate a student's financial need as regulated and defined by the methodology used for federal student financial aid. So basically what that does is it says that wherever the word expected family contribution is in statute or rule, it just means SAI. It has mentioned in, I wouldn't be surprised if it exceeded 500 different places. And we're not going to change statute in 500 places or our rules in 500 places. We just indicated that EFC means whatever formula the feds use. And so that way, if they ever decide to change the name again, we're already set for that. So nothing else changes. Like, it's still all the exact same calculations. The priority EFC is still 60% of the average, average tuition and fees at four-year publics. All those pieces of the puzzle are the same. And so when you say, when will the guidelines be published, I'm not sure what you're asking for by way of something new, other than our standard process for issuing those. So maybe that person could clarify what it is that they're looking for.
It was a question from Mary, sorry.
I think you've provided the information. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Any other rule questions that I can answer before I wrap up? Okay, well, thank you very much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to let you know about our rules and the like. And as I mentioned, Leah will continue to work to keep you all informed of future rules that we propose and keep you up to date.
Thanks, Chad. Really appreciate your giving us all that good info. It is a rule heavy year. So working through those is always helpful. And thanks, Gilbert and Gabby, for those insightful questions. We really appreciate that. Next on our agenda today is the data collection subcommittee report, which Deshay is going to deliver. And then after that, we're going to talk about finding a chair for our data collection subcommittee. So Deshay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. There was a handout that highlighted the committee meeting minutes. So what I'm going to do is just kind of briefly summarize some of the items that we talked about at that committee meeting. The data collection committee met on November 16th, and we went over several different items. One of the key things, and Millette just alluded to it, is that we announced that November meeting would be Dee Dee Gonzalez's last meeting as a data collection subcommittee chair, since she has transitioned off of the Financial Aid Advisory Committee as the task force board representative. However, she will continue to be a member of that committee. We did some modifications to the agenda. The agenda format changed to align with the new structure of the Student Financial Aid Programs Division. And so we kind of broke out 3 specific areas that we were going to cover. That was projects, operations, and policy. So within the projects update, there was an update on the paper and online task development, as well as the launch of the GAP for the block grant programs. The committee provided some feedback on both of those items that were discussed. For operations, we discussed the status of the fiscal year 23 FAD files and some of the workarounds due to the system limitations with reconciling state programs. We went over the new financial aid database dates for 23-24, and it was determined that cycle 1 is no longer going to be required. So the first submission for the 23-24 would be sometime in May or potentially June. The coordinating board does plan to send out the upcoming 23-24 FAD manual by early part of January. In addition to when that publication was going to be delivered, we also discussed about a new data element, which would be on 23-24, and that would be the transfer grant. And then we just recently got an update that we will be including the Texas Leadership Scholar as well. So we'll have 2 new data elements that will be a part of the 23-24 and any other future manuals, but they will be at the very end of the file structure. So I believe there'll probably be 119 and 120 for the data elements. So we also moved on and gave like a brief description of what would happen for 24-25, considering all of the changes that were related to the FAFSA simplification. So the 24-25 FAD manual is going to go over a complete overhaul, and we're going to look at all of the data elements, and it will probably be somewhat redesigned based on the changes that are coming out of the FAFSA simplification and some of the new data security requirements. So more to come. The idea is to try to get out 24-25 by the summer of 24. So sometime in between June and July, we'll have a release of that. Let's see, what else did we talk about? So for the policy update, also within, the operations side of it, we talked about the administration of Texas First and Transfer Grant. And then for the policy updates, Leah went over proposed rules, which you've already heard through Charles, but she did highlight Texas First, TEOG, and Transfer Grant. And also indicated that more rules were to come, and she was able to provide us information on a new nursing scholarship program, which will help to fund nurses pursuing their education. This will probably undergo a negotiated rulemaking committee, but won't be implemented until fall of 2024. So more information on those proposed rules once they are set out. We did receive an update on the Office of Student Financial Aid Programs, which I believe I highlight later on in this agenda. And we set new committee dates for the calendar year of 2024. So that was all that we discussed last month. And so happy to take any questions if you have any related to what the committee went through. All right, bearing none, that means that y'all read this wonderful handout and you got all the great information you needed. And so, but if you do come up with something later, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thanks, Deshay. Appreciate it. So next on the agenda, as Deshay mentioned, Dee Dee Gonzalez, who's been chairing our data collection subcommittee, her last meeting was September, and so we need to elect a new subcommittee chair for data collection. And I think it was nice that this happened right here in the agenda, because I think Deshay gave us a good sort of window into what that committee does, what that subcommittee does, and so I would like to ask for nominations for a subcommittee chair. If you'll recall from our last meeting discussion when we elected our other subcommittee chairs, the responsibility of a subcommittee chair is really to help craft the activities of the subcommittee, but there is a lot of support from THCCB staff. The full agenda is, for the committee is not the responsibility of the subcommittee chair. But these subcommittees do the nuts and bolts work of the FAAC. So I will ask for nominations. You can nominate yourself or anyone currently sitting on this committee. I'll just sit here until I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I'm going to chime in too, just because
please.
I've been kind of a participant for years, even though I'm not a subcommittee member, but I will say this is one of the most helpful committees because it helps drive decisions for a lot of the things that happen in financial aid, because a lot of the other subcommittees are so specific, like the legislative or TASFA, like they're specific charges. The data collection committee is so broad that a lot of topics come up, and I think I know there's not a lot of members on that are from the subcommittee, but you can ask them. It's like one of their favorite committees because of the amount of information and the guidance that they can provide on stuff. So that's my plug for, like, you would really want to be part of the subcommittee because you get a lot of insight into what is happening in the operations, because Deshay brings a lot of different things to the committee to think about. And so I know personally, just being on that committee for years, it fills a lot of gaps. So there's my, who wants it?
So I will volunteer to nominate myself, I guess would be the
excellent.
This is Beth, in case you can't see me.
Thank you, Beth.
Sure.
Thank you. We really, really appreciate your willingness to serve.
Yeah, thank you.
And I totally echo what Leah said. I think what I have seen and heard come out of this subcommittee over the years are, the advocating for what the changes to the FADs will look like, advocating for how to ensure that when that information is delivered to schools, it's understandable and it's helpful. So huge, very, very broad. So is anyone else want to nominate someone or yourself? Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, thank you again, Beth, for nominating yourself. I do need a motion to appoint Beth Tolan as the chair of the data collection subcommittee.
I motion to nominate Beth.
All right. Thanks, Rochelle. I need a second.
I'll second.
All the seconds. Linda or Cecilia, pick one. All right. All those in favor, say aye or yes or woohoo.
Aye.
Nobody said woohoo. Woohoo. Oh, yes. Good job, Erica. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. All opposed? Say something else. All right. Motion passes. And thank you again, Beth. Really appreciate. And Deshay will be in touch with you, follow up with you on what's next for that subcommittee.
Looking forward to it, Beth. Lots of work that needs to still get done. So be ready.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the legislative subcommittee update. Scott, I will turn it over to you.
There's not really any updates right now. I'm meeting with the TASFA legislative subcommittee next week. We're going to go over Delisa Falk is the chair of the committee this year for TASFA. So she's asked us to bring items we prepare to discuss for sharing with TASFA members and other ideas of how we can assist the membership with different legislative or state or federal legislative reporting issues for the upcoming year.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. All right, next I will pass it to my friend Denise Welch, current president of the Texas Association for State Student Financial Aid Administrators. Denise, give us an update.
Thank you, Millette. Good morning, everyone. At this point, we are scheduled to have a TASFA board meeting on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Housekeeping items, we will start the budget process. We're beginning to, our committees are beginning to gear up for, like Scott just said, legislative is going to meet next week. So we have a lot of things going on. Our conference chair has already hit the ground running. It's going to be an awesome conference for next year. We look forward to a very productive year with TASFA, and we just are rocking and rolling. And
okay. Thanks, Denise. We'll look forward to the continuing partnership with TASFA. Appreciate that update. And we really should not put TASFA next to TASFA on the agenda, because the next thing on the agenda is the TASFA, meaning the application, subcommittee update. So I will ask my friend Heather Fountain to give us an update on that.
All right, let me find my notes really fast. Okay, so the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board released the 24-25 paper TASFAs for institutional review back on November 16th. So a summary of those changes was included in the memo that went out to everybody. Just at a high level, there were some changes to various different questions, really to align with the updated FAFSA. Questions related to earnings, child support paid, dislocated worker questions were removed. There were approximately 10 new questions that were added to, again, align with some of the FAFSA simplification changes. Such as adding pensions and rollovers, net profit loss, and foreign earned income exclusions. Some of the TASFA questions were updated by adding more options or fixing terminology again to better align with the FAFSA changes. And then a new family information section was created to help break out the federal benefits and the household information to really help with the overall flow of the form and to align with the terminology changes on the FAFSA. So those were sent out, and minimal comments were received following the draft release, but the comments that were received have been incorporated into the new form where possible. The final PDF fillable version of the TASFA in both English and Spanish will be ready once the FAFSA is available, so on or before December 31st. So I think Leah is just waiting to hit a button, right? So we're waiting for the FAFSA to release so that the 24-25 TASFA, paper TASFA can be released as well. And it will be posted on the TASFA webpage, the College for All Texans website, and the SFAP institutional webpage as well. So be on the lookout for that. Development for the online TASFA is complete, and testing is being done over the next few weeks to prepare for the launch. The launch for the online TASFA is planned for the end of February 2024. So testing will be done so that we can ensure that we meet that goal date of the end of February. The file layout for the online TASFA is being reviewed by the subcommittee, and it will be released to institutions in the coming weeks, along with test files once they are available. So Leah's been working with their IT folks to get all of that ready so that schools can start, the subcommittee can start looking at the file layout, and then it can be released to institutions. And then now Leah is going to actually provide a short demo of the 24-25 TASFA to give everybody an idea of what to expect once that magic button is pushed and it opens up for everybody.
So I actually thought I saw a hand up. So before I kind of go any further, I just wanted to see, are there any questions on what Heather provided that I can answer before I wow you? Just kidding. I was gonna wait, but
was you, Gilbert?
What's up?
Yeah, I was gonna wait, but I'll ask it. I'm actually just curious about the once it launches, will there be a direct sync with the counselor suite to capture that? I know with the FAFSA data coming from the department, counselors are able to log in there and see the filing. And I was just curious, if it launches in January, is the structure already in place to capture those filings and populate into the suite once students begin submitting that? And actually, while we're on it, in case you know, with the change in the FAFSA, will there be an impact on capturing student level filings within the suite?
So to start with, your first question was, will TASFA completion be populated in the counselor suite? Yes, it is already set up to do that. The reason, if you log in right now, it's unlikely you'll see 23-24 was because of the timing of the launch from last year. It was kind of like, well, if we start putting completion in there, it may confuse high school counselors that are looking for 24-25. And so it's my understanding that they held off on they're receiving the data. I don't think that they're populating it in the counselor suite yet. But yes, the system is set up to have TASFA students included in the counselor suite. I don't know with FAFSA simplification what changes have been made for FAFSA. I don't believe anything has changed. And just so the majority of the people on the call right now are from colleges and universities. So the counselor suite is for the ISDs to log in to look for high school completion. And right now it just pulls in some basics like, did they do their FAFSA? Is it done? What day did they do it? And if they're selected or not for verification. And so when we created the TASFA flow into there, we had to, clearly TASFA doesn't have like a selection or, selected for verification piece. So it's a little bit different. So there you will, as a high school counselor, someone would be able to distinguish between the two. But it has the same components. So it would have their name and all the similar fields that the FAFSA has. So as far as we know, it's working. We're testing it. That's part of this testing process that Heather just mentioned. So we have different pieces of the project that we're focusing on over the next 2 months to make sure that once we do launch, everything is smooth. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Leah. Appreciate it.
We'll see if it actually works, right? I always hear, yes, it's totally working. I'm like, okay, we'll see.
Leah, can I just ask a clarifying question? So with the counselor portal, that is just for the online TASFA, correct? Like if a student submits a paper TASFA, that is not going to be updated automatically in the counselor portal.
Correct. Just like FAFSA. I mean, we know that there's not many students that do paper FAFSAs, but it's our understanding, and anyone who works at the school, like Erica, I see you on too. It's my understanding that a lot of high school counselors use an external method, right? Like they have a tracker of all their students and then they kind of mark them off the list. And so the counselor suite is really just kind of one tool that's used. And I don't even know how many people rely on that because it's just such a complex process. Erica, you're like nodding, so I don't know if you want to chime in, but.
No, yes, I agree. I have my own Excel sheet only because I have full control over the data that I put in there, and it's up to the date as best as I input versus any kind of lag time between what gets done today and then potentially 1 to 2 weeks later, their name may show up on Applied Texas. And there's so many little potential issues that might arise, and some of them we may never even think about until they happen. So at the school's end, to ensure that we clear them in time for graduation and that there's no issues there, most counselors will have a separate and segregated version of keeping track, and that just serves as another method to confirm what's been done. So yeah, it's an added resource and an added method. It doesn't tend to be our only method. Too much can go potentially wrong, and graduation's at stake if we can't or confirm that it's been done.
Right. Now, one benefit of the coordinating board being able to feed the counselor's suite directly is ideally it's going to be more accurate, because when we receive FAFSA data from the Department of Education, we have to do all these matches and crosswalks and all these kind of algorithms to get the data to the counselor suite, whereas we're collecting it directly at the coordinating board and then we just pop it on over to them. So fingers crossed it's a cleaner process for TASFA students. We'll see, because we do hear that a lot, that FAFSA students, like, they didn't show up into the counselor suite because of, again, all the matching that occurs, and people don't always put the right high school and a million other factors. So all right, so I wanted to meet with y'all today as the year comes to a close. We haven't really connected on 24-25 online TASFA much because we've been in development. And so, like Heather mentioned, we have finished development. And so now we're in major test mode to work out any bugs, make sure that it's working well before we release it. And also we're waiting for Department of Education. So we didn't want to risk opening up our application before Department of Ed to make sure that we're creating, a sense of equity. But that's why we're keeping the paper form in alignment. So at least we have something out there for students while we wrap up testing and we get everything out to the schools, such as test files. So where I'd like to start, let's see if I can figure out Zoom, because I'm terrible at this. Let me pull up. First, I wanted to show y'all, in case people are not aware, that we built a web page. There we go. And y'all see my screen. Okay. So before the launch last fall, or in August, I should say, that was only a few months ago, we had built a TASFA landing page to kind of house where students can go, and that's going to be connected to Apply Texas. And so the students can either shoot off to FAFSA, or they can shoot off to TASFA. We did not want them to go over to College for All Texans because that web page is very outdated. It's just hard to maintain. So this one is very nice and modern, and it has kind of the intro here. And so what I wanted to also show y'all is, like, we ended up adding something for 24-25 similar to FAFSA, like, hey, it's not currently available. Make sure that once the paper form is available, you're going to do that one, that kind of thing. So we put this here because we know people are out there searching for 24-25, because historically it's open in October and now it's December. So that's up here. This will come down once we go live, but we added that a week or two ago just to make sure people were aware. Another thing that we added was this alert down here about the extension of the priority deadline, so that students who were concerned they are not going to meet the January date know that it has been pushed out to March. So that's on there. The reason why we didn't put that more kind of front and center and really big is because priority deadline to me is one of those kind of sensitive things. If you tell people that there's a deadline, they immediately start panicking. They think that they have to do it by a certain time, and it only applies to general teaching schools. So the four-year universities are bound to this date to use it to prioritize. It's not a deadline. So again, we're very sensitive to putting that out there so that people don't think that, oh my gosh, I missed the deadline, I can't do it. So that's why I'm really careful on what we put out on our webpage when it comes to the state priority deadline. But we wanted to make sure that people knew that it had been pushed out. So that was added on the webpage as well. So all of this is just kind of helpful guidance for the student and their families. And then as they scroll down, we have this center section, which really is how the student can either get started, or if they're a returning applicant, they can go straight over to their account by logging in. But we also have this. We have not made any changes to this piece. So if you're familiar, this may be repeated, but if you've never seen this, this is called a decision tree. And because a lot of students that call the coordinating board are under the impression that in order to get Texas grant, they need to do the TASFA, or they think they can get more money if they do a TASFA, not realizing that you do one or the other, and that the TASFA is only intended for students who cannot do the FAFSA. So this is really just a simple question and answer that they can use to go through the process. And so they answer yes or no. These are just the basics. So if they answer yes, it has a button to start the FAFSA. We do have the ability to bypass that just in case they were told by their institution they need to do a TASFA for some reason. But if they hit no, then it takes them to the next question. And it goes on 1 through 4. So I'll just keep going here. And once they get to this last one, which is related to residency, the assumption is if they are a Texas resident and they did not meet any of the other criteria, that they should be able to do a TASFA. If they answer no, then we say, hey, go talk to your school first and then go back and you can start a TASFA at that point. When they start a TASFA, this is in our live place for the public. So I'm going to show you what we have on the TASFA right now. And then what I'm actually going to do is shift over to our test site to show you what's in development, kind of what the screens look like now. We have made minimal changes, but I still like to show kind of how it's evolved. So right now, when they sign in, they have to get a verification code, which I have on a different screen. So give me just a second to grab it. Get the magic going here. Let's see. Okay, verify. And then when the student logs in, because I'm a returning user, it took me directly to this applications page. As a new user, turn this off. As a new user, they actually land on the home screen here. But since, again, I already have an application in progress, you can see it on the page here. Now, as a returning user that has already done a TASFA or maybe started the 23-24, when they log in, we actually just added this a week or two ago into the live site. So it's just telling them 24-25 is not available yet and that they need to check the web page for updates, either for the paper form or for the online. So when they click here, it takes them back to the web page I just showed you. Now, if they need to do something for 23-24, they can go ahead and complete that. I think the last time I checked, and I should have looked this up before this meeting, but we have over 1,000 students who, or maybe people from the schools who have gone on to create an account and a TASFA. So, and I say the schools because I looked at the extension of the emails and a lot of them are from universities and colleges, so, which I don't blame you. I would do the same thing too once it went live. But so this is kind of the current state. You can see how it looks. And I've done lots of demos on this before, so I'm not going to really go into what the 23-24 looks like. What I thought I'd do instead is shift over to 24-25 and kind of show you how it looks and feels and some of the changes we've made. Again, overall, we haven't made a substantial change other than the ones Heather mentioned. You know, we've added questions, removed questions, changed some wording, that kind of thing. But let's go over here and good old Mary Poppins. We're going to sign in for Mary. This is our test site. So let's, fingers crossed, it works. Okay, come back here. Here's my code. Okay, so when you come into the TASFA through here, you can see it's a little bit different. So on the other screen, we only had one application available, and now we have both applications available. So you can see we have two different colors. We have, here's the 24, they can start this. We decided to push down 23-24 to kind of prioritize the newer form first. And then we actually moved some of this language up to the top to make it cleaner. So another thing is at the top of the screen on our old, see, I can pull it up over here. You'll recall that we actually had this Spanish information at the bottom of the page. And then we had little help icons throughout, which to me got a little bit lost. I don't know that people always saw that. So what we made a decision to do on the new form is actually just add it at the top of the page. And so when they click on the TASFA en Español, We don't have TASFA in Spanish, but this guides them to the paper form so that they can pull that up. So once we publish the TASFA in Spanish, then we'll have the versions in here that they can use for the applicable year. So that's what a subtle change, but to me, it really helped clean up the pages, because I don't know about y'all, when you go to a web page or you're filling something out, the more that's on the screen, the more complicated it becomes. So really, we're trying to think about the user a lot this year and trying to make things easier for them. So as I click start, and I'm going to kind of toggle back and forth so you can see the current form and you can see the newer form, and that way there's a comparison. So overall, we changed how it looks. And again, I am very happy about this change, because sometimes you can't pinpoint why something is awkward or harder to use. And sometimes it can come down just simply color on the screen. So when I go back to this screen, this is the old one. We kind of have this like elephant gray, I like to call it. I was like, oh, I don't really have the elephant gray. We have the brighter buttons at the top. And so now on the newer form, it's more subtle, it's cleaner, it's more modern. And so all of that's been updated. You'll also notice when you go this is the old form here. We had this page section button, and because we rearranged some of the pages, we eliminated that. Again, I feel like it makes it easier to navigate in the newer form. So I'm going to stay on the newer form now. Uh-oh, what happened? Can y'all see my screen? Okay, sorry, both screens just went black. Okay, so this is the new form. Again, all the color schemes, everything is cleaner and easier to navigate. All of the entries in each of the fields include error validations, meaning that if the student enters something in and it's wrong, it doesn't meet the rules, they will receive a pop-up. And if they don't enter anything in and they hit save, then they immediately pop up to show them all the things that they have to do. So right now I hit save. You can see here like, hey, you forgot these items here. What is happening? My screen. Am I good? Can I get some nods? Okay. All right. So the major change on the student page was the removal of the federal benefits. That's kind of the piece where we decided to, at the bottom of the form, we had all of the piece where the student had to enter their household information, but they also had the federal benefits. And one of the challenges with that was that dependency and household size were kind of tied together. And so the way it was in last year's form is that they had to go to the dependency tab, answer the questions, and then essentially come back to the student tab to understand how to fill out their household information. So it's very clunky, in my opinion. It was something where we're like, okay, we've got to fix this for 24-25. So our solution was to completely create a brand new information section. And so you can see here that we've added another item in here, but it pulls in all of the federal and it pulls in the now family information into one place. And so it goes in a better flow than it did before, and it's just easier all around to understand. And so each of the federal benefits is now in here. And then as they scroll through on family size and they read the instructions, it's easier to understand, because then they can say, oh, okay, on my dependency form, I answered no to all my questions, or I answered yes to some of those. And then that drives how they answer the questions here. So this is probably the biggest change that we've made to the form is moving that out. So several things: that shortens the student section, so it's not quite as long for them to complete. It's more logical now, because now it falls in a better flow overall. And it's just, this aligns with the FAFSA simplification, because we not only updated it from household to family, but we added in several of the things that they did as well on the FAFSA. They expanded this list of options here. So we did that alignment as well. Now, like Heather mentioned, I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but we went through the form. We went through line by line on the FAFSA and the TASFA, and we tried to identify what questions changed, wording, anything that might impact the SAI. And then we had to decide what was the change we were going to make for the TASFA form. So there weren't a ton of them, but the ones that we did make, we included in the memo. So I will not go through those right now, but we kind of line itemed those out and told you which ones were removed, which ones were added, and which ones were updated. So that's going to be your best guide as to how to look at the form. And the easiest way at this point is to take the paper TASFA from last year and the one that was just released to the colleges, and you could compare those to see, exactly how it changed. Let's see. So on student tab, again, much shorter now. The dependency tab, nothing changed here. So I think there may be some tiny word updates. But same functionality as last year. We have all the little help icons. When you click on them, it pops up with a message here to assist the user so they know how to answer the question, and then they can just close it out. I'd say 99% of the form has help icons. And if they don't, they are usually because they're straightforward. Let's see. None of the other tabs changed with any functionality. We still have the same setup. Essentially, the student fills out the form. If they're dependent, then they send their parent a hyperlink to their email, which has to be different from the students. And when the parent enters in certain validation pieces, so they have to answer the student's date of birth, the student's email, and the student's application ID, it allows them to enter the form and review it in a read-only format. So the parent can see if there's any mistakes that have been made. And then it allows the parent to do an acknowledgement that everything is good. At that point, then the student would log in and submit their application. One thing that we had considered doing, and I can open it up for feedback to see if it's really a big impact, but we still limit how many schools the student can pick to 10. And it's my understanding that FAFSA actually expanded theirs. I think they went up to 20 now or 15. I can't remember. I was like, well, because the TASFA form allows the student to go back and add 10 at a time, I just didn't really think it was that big of a necessity to fix ours. So since I have y'all on the call, if there's a need to do that, you can. If anything, we try to restrict to 10 to avoid having the student just submit to everybody, because that creates a burden on the colleges to then send out a potential award package when they have no intention of going to your school. So this is kind of, the 10 kind of makes them think, okay, which schools am I going to do? And then if they have to go back, they can do that. Let's see. So this is kind of how it looks. Again, I didn't want to do a full demo just because I've done probably like 10 of them in the past 6 to 9 months, and all of them are recorded and on our webpage. So you can always go back and look at the 23-24. It goes through page by page what the functionality is and all the different features of TASFA. But I really wanted to highlight one. Visually, it looks better. We cleaned up some things. We really streamlined the process, and that we moved the family info into a better logical flow. So this is the next steps here are that we intend to open it by the end of February 2024. And I used the word intend. And I do that because I don't want to make a promise we can't keep. But that is our goal. We are doing very well. We're on track with this project. No major delays like last time. So that is our goal. So before we go live with it, we will be sending out a new file layout because it changed from last year. So that way schools who do want to look at processing the files, automating that, you can do it. If I'd say the majority of schools are not going to have the ability to import the TASFA files this year as well. We've heard from vendors that it's just very complex process. It's going to take a while, but we do have two file formats that are sent to the school. One is a fixed length file, and those are intended for automation and processing. So importing into your system. As a workaround, we created a CSV file, and the CSV file is so that you can process the TASFA into your system to calculate the SAI once you get your vendor software patch or whatever they call it. I think Heather and I were talking. She's like, we're waiting on a patch or some kind of, piece from your vendor to help with the calculator tool. So we did that intentionally because, yes, I know that everybody wants to automate and make life easier, but just remember this is in its infancy stage. And we'll get there. Like the goal is definitely to do more of an ISER load kind of concept where y'all get the files, they feed into your system. You can see all the data on the screen. But this is really just the beginning of TASFA. So in the interim, you do have the ability to continue to process these kind of like your paper forms by plugging in all the data elements, calculating your SAI, and then moving on with your packaging. And one of the huge benefits is one, you do have them electronically, far less issues with the data that's collected because paper forms, people make a lot of mistakes or they skip things or, and then also the added piece of the mailing can take time and can delay taskers from reaching your office. This will get to y'all faster so that you can enter those in and get them taken care of. So, was there anything else that I was going to share with y'all? I've gone through a lot, but I will stop and see what can I answer. And I don't know, is my little block blurry? Because I can see it, but I was like, whatever. I can't stop and fix it at the moment, so I'm just not going to worry about it.
It is blurry. It happened when your screens went blank, and then when they came back, they came almost immediately. But then you were a fuzz, so. We know what you look like. It's okay.
Nobody needs to see me anyway, but let me stop sharing. Maybe that'll fix it.
No.
Stop. All right. Let's see if this works. No, I don't know what's happening. I don't want y'all to see my crazy background. Anything? I don't know. I give up.
It did work for just a sec. You were clear, crystal clear, and then blurry again. That's okay.
I don't know.
We do have a few questions.
Gilbert's hand is up and Renee's hand is up. So I don't know. Gilbert, go ahead. Renee,
Yeah.
do you need to tell me something?
Yes, so I have a question in the chat. It's from Gabby. It was kind of one of the first questions that the online will ask them. It's let's see, determining a student's residency. They have 2 students who are considered dependent students who graduated high school here in Texas, but only completed 1 or 2 years of high school here. They're trying to establish their Texas residency, and the registrar says that they don't qualify because they attended less than 3 years of high school. However, their parents have been working here in the state and filing their taxes here for at least a year. Shouldn't then the student be able to establish Texas residency because they're dependents and their parents have been working here in the state for more than a year?
So I hate to do this to you again, Gabby, but we'll take this offline just because complex residency scenarios, I hate to give guidance on a call like this. So we'll start making a list of topics we can discuss with your institution. But because institutions are the ones that determine residency, I don't want to dig through details right now and give you the wrong guidance. So we'll connect hopefully this week or early next week, and we can see if we can get you some answers and I can go through that more. Does that work? Hopefully she's there. And
Yes.
just as a reminder, just as a really nice, friendly reminder, we try to avoid using the chat on the committee member meetings because they're recorded. And so all of the dialogue is supposed to be video. So no worries, because I know a lot of people are new to the committee, but just as a heads up. So I know it's not fun to come onto the video, but if you can, just raise your hand and then we'll call on you. And sorry, I'm blurry. Gilbert?
Yeah, just a quick question from, I guess, from a student like renewal perspective or data collection perspective. Once the student actually fills out the form, assuming, they're continuing it for renewing their aid, will it save? Does it work like an Applied Texas where you're applying to multiple schools and there's a record, you can go back to it? Or what about corrections and this kind of thing?
So there's no correction process as of now. So once the student submits it, they have to make any corrections with the school and provide, whatever documentation they need to clear if they have conflicting information. And from year to year, we haven't built it that way yet, but that is one of the enhancements we kind of have thought about, is when they log back in, can we kind of do an autofill to populate, the majority of the form for them, and then they can go through to verify which ones are right. So we don't have that built in yet, but they can, each year that they log in, it would have historically which TASFAs they'd either started, where they submitted to, all of that. So that is already an option, but we don't have the ability yet. And I know really, I call it a wish list item or a goal, is to somehow connect Apply Texas. So when they finish their Apply Texas and they go to start their TASFA, it would then pull the data into the application for them. We are not there yet. So that's something that is for sure a vision that we intend to pursue, but it's not there yet. There was something else I was going to mention that had to do with like from year to year. I didn't know what it is, but if I think of it, I'll speak up in a minute. But yeah, it's still so new that any functionality that y'all think of or obstacles as your students start using this form, we're building a online survey on the web page, and it's probably going to be on the center side of the page where you can click on it. And it's going to allow users, such as students or parents, to provide technical issues or feedback, but also institutions. So based on y'all's experience with families and whatnot, or as an institution on things that are like, oh, this is not working well for us, you can provide that feedback versus through our online contact us, which this will allow us to kind of collectively pull in the TASFA together. That is in the works, and we're hoping to have that available when we go live in the end of February. So keep an eye out for that piece to, ask questions and provide feedback. I think that's what I was going to tell you, the piece. Any other questions on TASFA I can answer? All right, I think we are back to the agenda.
Thanks, Leah, and Heather, for those updates. Really appreciate that. And the demo was really cool. Thanks. That was a good thing to take time to do. I appreciate that. We are going to take a quick break. Just give everybody a chance to, stretch your legs, whatever you got to do. It is 11:15 by my clock, so we will take a 20-minute break and be back here at 11:35. And we will then do roll call again. So please be back right at 11:35, and we will see you then.
See you in a bit.
All right. Hopefully everyone's getting back in. I'll give it just another 60 seconds or so, and then I'll do roll call. Okay. Let's do quick roll call, and then we'll move on in the agenda.
There's feedback. Hang on just a second. I think we're good.
We good?
I think so.
Okay. Let's see. Rochelle.
Here.
Cecilia.
Here.
Leah. Deshay.
Here.
I know
I'm
you're
here.
here, Leah.
Sorry, yeah. I don't know what's going on. I'm here.
No problem. You're not fuzzy anymore, so that's something. Let's see. Where was I? Jackie Adler.
Here.
Mary Escobar.
Here.
Heather.
Here.
Michelle.
You're just slow on the mute button.
Okie dokie. Sometimes I can't find it either. Jackie Kelly.
Here.
Thank you, Jackie. Scott.
Here.
Gabby.
Here.
Linda.
Here.
Erica.
Ooh, I'm here.
Tanya.
Here.
Thank you, Tanya. Tevian.
Here.
Beth.
Here.
Amy.
Here.
Gilbert.
Here.
And Denise. All right. Okay, thanks everybody. Next on our agenda is an update from our high school district participants. Lisa was unable to join us today, but I think Erica is here. Erica, do you have anything to share?
Hi, yes, good afternoon. No, good morning. Oh, I don't know. It's been interesting on the high school side to see what the families and the students are experiencing. We're trying to roll with it as we learn what is changing and how we can anticipate, especially for districts that have really high volume or big cohorts. Mine, for example, is 500. So how do we realistically do 8 months worth of work, which we're used to now in about 5 months? So getting ahead with doing FSAID drives as best that we can is what we started with, and telling everyone to be patient. But what we're seeing a lot of is we are anticipating a lot of start and stop and difficulties when it comes to the parents who don't have socials and who are creating FSAIDs for the first time. And it's more than just the, okay, they're going to need their own email, which we're actually walking them through because many don't even have that. But it's also to truly learn what exactly do they need to do so that we can tell them now, rather than learning as we go. Oftentimes, that's the type of population that we get one shot at them. We don't have the luxury of continuing to just kind of like pull them back and forth. And flying the plane as we go is the phrase I keep using, but it's a very scary term, especially for that population. So we are asking for students to ensure that they have parent FSAIDs, reset those from siblings that are older. But what we at the high school level are anticipating is that there is going to be a lot of families that are not going to get past the FSAID for one reason or another. And how are we able to do this FAFSA if we cannot get an FSAID, if we cannot have a safety net of a signature page? So if the family is doing everything that we're asking them to do, provide income information, provide documents, and we still can't get through that process, graduation, how do we clear them, especially when they are doing their best efforts to try to complete the application? So there's just so many nightmarish scenarios that we're going through. And the name of the game for many of us, especially because Texas is so big, planning ahead to ensure not just we can play with high volume, but ensure the most efficiency with the least mistakes, especially in a year that we don't have the luxury of as much time as we have in the past, is where we're all just kind of fearing and we're stuck. But we're telling everyone to just be patient, and they're not alone. We are in this together with them. So if they're crying, we're crying, and we're all crying together. Share tears. I see Miss Linda's hand up. Did you have a question for me, Miss Linda?
Not a question, rather a comment. I've done a lot of guidance counselor trainings for high schools in the Houston area. And one thing that we know is that parents on December 31st, or whenever the FAFSA is available, parents without social security numbers should be able to get an FSA ID. And we've seen a demo of that, and we're nervous about that too. But I think that that's just one of those things that together we are going to have to wait and see. So hopefully, the other thing that I will tell you, I just did a video that they're not done editing yet, but we're going to send it to our students and prospective students. And I'm telling students not to go to the FAFSA on December 31st or the minute it opens. I'm telling them that, like any website, it could be bogged down by users that day. And I'm saying it's brand new, and I trust that they're testing it. But in case there's a bug, why don't we let other people do that? And the Department of Ed will not send any FAFSAs to schools until the end of January. So I've been telling them I'd give it a week or two, and so I really think that might help. I don't know. I'm not telling my students to go out the day it opens. That's what I want to share.
Thank you. I actually, the type of population that I have, since we're right on the tip of Texas, the border between Mexico and the US, is there are many first gen, and both Mexican American and college. So most of the families are not independent enough that they're going to tackle it on their own, which yay and nay. The yay is that, okay, you will come to me, we will do this together. We can ensure that we try to do it as correctly as possible. As much as I love independent families, oftentimes if they do mess up, they're going to come to us, and fixing an error is so much more time consuming than it is if we just got it right the first time. So I tell students, I love your independence. Don't do your FAFSA on your own. As much as I love playing with 500 seniors, I'd rather do it right. And we do it in order and properly. But the real catch with undocumented parents is the process to verify them. I'm getting some sources that are saying, first they're going to have to call, and then they're going to get an email to the email that they use for FSAID, and then they have to submit documentation, Texas ID or some sort of government ID. What if they don't have that? Okay, well then let's try to do some sort of a bill with their name, and also some corresponding identification, like a community ID. Well, what exactly is a community ID? There's so much in the air, and I would love to be able to just present to parents right now, like, just come with this information and I got you. And not having that information is what's leading to not just more fear, but even speculation onto the process. And this population feels like they don't want to be guinea pigged on. But unfortunately, we're all in the same boat. So I'm telling them we're just going to do it together. And as much as I can find out, give me time to find it out. And then, so I told them all, I love you. I don't, not on the 31st. I'm not ringing in the new year doing your FAFSA. I will see you in January when you come back, and in an orderly fashion, and just patience. Mr. Gilbert, did you have a question for me?
No, I was just listening, and I know that there is a verification done through TransUnion as part of the FSA ID setup, and I'm not sure if that's helpful, but I think for those that don't have socials, I mean that's how I understand the department is going to be matching
They
folks. So I don't know that if they
they are.
do, then do they still need to have an additional document beyond what the department's already identified? I don't know.
I think the problem is most people, or many people, I shouldn't say most, many people who don't have a social security number also don't have a credit report. And so checking with TransUnion is a little bit like, you know, it's really asking the same question, which, you know, I don't have that either. So,
Yeah, I understood it wasn't a credit check. So it's a tracking, or maybe it's
an
a
identity
person.
check.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's the same.
They still have to
This
be
is
in the
not
database.
yeah.
And so
They
a
got some
lot of
sort of a
people aren't.
loan. Yeah.
Right. They've had an account of
something,
some kind.
and
Mhm.
these are not the families that have that.
Yeah.
So it's, and then we still haven't confirmed, you know, exactly how do they turn in this information? Is there some sort of upload portal? Are they using their FSA ID to log into that portal? Is it just a generic email? Is it just a fax number? And I'm assuming there's going to be a physical person on the receiving end of these documents to actually grade them and confirm, yes, this does meet the rigor of identity. No, it doesn't meet the rigor. We decline you. You don't move forward with continuing your students' FAFSA, submit other docs. And what happens if and when they can't submit anything else? It's just that is for my specific population what a lot of us are fearing, because many, I would say 40+% of my student population do not come from a traditional household, which is two parents and everyone files and everyone has socials and everyone claims their kids, and it's just cookie cutter. Most of my students are single parent households, and you know, some sort of different situation. It makes it interesting. So on the high school end, we're just trying to FSA ID everyone for students, and then say, okay, if your parent wants to come on in, we'll help them with an FSA ID. If you prefer to do that at home, here are the instructions. We just walk you through yours and play with your sibling as well to reset those. And let's be ready when the application opens. But my real fear is what happens for the families that can't get past the FSA ID, the parents that can't get past the FSA ID for whatever reason. And if we can't find a workaround to submit this FAFSA, how do we graduate them? So I think we're going to be having some conversations with the Department of Ed as best we can. And actually, I hate to redirect parents anywhere, because I don't want anyone to feel like we're hot potatoing them. But unfortunately, I think that's what we'll have to do to ensure that the Department of Ed realizes and knows these are all the situations that are arising that we need solutions for. And so that real changes can potentially be made, or upgrades for everyone, so that all students feel that FAFSA is for them and it's inclusive and not exclusive. Any questions from anyone on the committee?
I think my question, and thank you so much for, we're aware of this problem, but I think at least I know I am insulated from it in a way that you are not. So I really appreciate, Erica, you giving us the what it feels like in the trenches right now. That's super helpful and super important to us. What can we do to help? What can, as financial aid administrators, obviously we can advocate with the department as our employers allow and as our situations allow. We can advocate for this group of students and families that have this need. But is there other support that we can offer you?
I'm so glad that you
anything.
asked. It's funny that you asked because this just came up recently as I was collaborating with some colleagues from the other side of the country who brought to light that it turns out the Department of Ed might or may be leaving up to higher ed institutions the choice of allowing for some wiggle room with families, whether it's in regards to older siblings being a part of the household, those families who are jumping a significant change from the way they used to file their FAFSAs to now it's the new financial contributor, and it may knock them out of being able to qualify. And so if there's older siblings in the home, currently the new changes don't account for that. But apparently higher ed will allow a case-by-case basis, but it's up to the institutions if they want to play nice. So I'm hoping to continue to collaborate with our higher ed partners and to say we have these situations. If we do it this new way, the student is going to qualify for nothing. And yet the older siblings have been able to afford college and been able to, it seems almost unfair now with the way that the changes have worked out. So I guess our best, in my mind, is best bet is just to try to have really good, efficient methods for verification, because whatever data we're losing for the simplified process, it's going to come out in verification. I mean, there's going to be such a surge in verification. Staff needed and processes, but as much information as you can give the high schools that you tend to work with, putting your documents, your verification documents in your websites, and very clear, step by step, like just fill this out, turn this in, and it will alleviate the staff from having to take hopefully less phone calls and less emails, and it frees you guys up to just process the tsunami that is coming, and we try to make it as efficient as possible. I've always been a fan of more information is better, information is power, whether we put that on the website or we just communicate it with the partners directly to ensure that it's used properly. The more information we can give them, the better, and the more resources you give to us that we can alleviate on your end. Those verification documents, when do we use them? How do we use them? Very clear instructions. You email it to this person, this address. Those only use this phone number as needed type of things that hopefully will unbog the system, so that those of us that just have a very specific question, and case-by-case situation, get to the right people faster. I'm hoping will allow us to have an efficient method, as efficient as possible as we can get. So if institutions continue to have a May 1st deadline, I think that's also another ask. If institutions are willing to push back a May 1st deadline, which has always been a traditionally across the board, everyone takes that. But I think if institutions are rolling out financial aid much later, understandably, it's giving families less time to truly get those offers, compare them, and make a decision by deadline. So our decision days, we're thinking, do we even push them back? Is it worth it? So if institutions are willing to play with that May 1st deadline as well, that would also alleviate a lot of stress from the students and families who feel like I need to rush to get this done so that I don't lose whatever offer is on the table. Ms. Denise, I see your hand up. Did you have a question?
So this, I'm at Panola College, which is a community college in East Texas. As a community college, we understand a lot of what you're going through as well, because we have a large population in our areas of undocumented students. What we do in our service area, each community college has a service area. We don't have a deadline. We don't tell a student that they have to have their FAFSA done by May 1st. There is a state priority deadline for state funding. And, but again, like Leah said earlier, that is just a priority. That's something for us to use as a guide. who, because it's first come, first serve. So we have to have something. But I think I would speak for a lot of our schools in Texas. There's not a deadline to fill a FAFSA out except for June 30th of the fall, the next year. That's really the deadline when you cannot access that FAFSA anymore. So I think that it's important for us to communicate with you guys what our policies are, like you said, give you some tools that you can help educate your students. What we're doing in my county is I email all of my service area counselors, and I have been very upfront with them what the dates were. And if you could see my January and February calendar, it is booked full of FAFSA nights where I actually go to the schools and work with parents and students. And this year is going to be so challenging with a lot of times I just have parents show up, and we're going to have that student, and that student's going to have to be there to set up the FAFSA so that then they can invite the contributors to come in. And sometimes I just have students that don't have the information. So it's going to be a challenge for all of us this year. And I would hope that maybe the higher ed schools in your area would offer a service like that they can come and help you as well.
Yeah, they've been STC, South Texas College, and UTRGV, University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, have been unbelievably supportive and always been aware of the population that we all are working with and they are inheriting, and they've been really good about collaborating together so that oftentimes if one is asking for a form, odds are the student is applying for the other, and they've even partnered to say, we'll accept the same form. We'll put both of our logos on there. Why make a student redo another notarized letter that they may potentially have to pay a notary to go ahead? And so we'll take it. That has been so, that is a perfect example of our community being aware of its needs and addressing them very intentionally. And to clarify, the May 1st deadline, I meant for decision of where they're going to go. Most higher ed institutions will have that as their deadline to say, whatever we offered you, it's on the table. Decide you're coming to us by May 1st. And if you don't accept what is on that table, it's going to disappear May 2nd. And that's and I know that is going to be a concern, especially for the type A students that are trying to make a really informed decision. And they're waiting for maybe their number 1 or 2 school to still get them financial aid offers. And they're going to be close to a May 1st deadline to truly make that decision. So I'm hoping some institutions take that into consideration and potentially push that date back. And we know we'll do FAFSA through the summer because we know that there's some students that are still trying to get it together and trying to graduate. But I look forward to collaborating with our partners here in the South. But I know that if higher ed institutions throughout the state also are willing to collaborate and take into account what their high school partners are experiencing and willing to get their hands dirty, just like you all are, in whether it's FAFSA nights or FSAID nights, or just trying to make their verification processes more efficient or in anticipation of what's going to happen. I think that together we'll get there. I don't know how bruised we'll be when we get there, but we'll get there.
All right,
Any
Amy,
other
did you
have
something, Amy?
Yeah, I actually had a statement. We made a shift last year, well, with the 23-24 year. We used priority deadline as our verbiage, and we shifted to priority date. And so that we have noticed has made a significant change, even among our faculty and staff that we communicate things with, because they view deadline as a deadline, even though you put priority in front of it. So I would like to encourage and challenge others to make that shift if you haven't already, because priority date insinuates early bird gets the worm, which is the point. not so much a deadline. You can't do anything after that. We also have a 45-day cancellation period for our awards. We have never and still will not, even with the delay, especially with the delay of everything this year, we do not stick to that. So when students call and we encourage them like, hey, please accept what we've offered you. You can accept it at every school that's offered you something. And then when you decide, you can contact us and tell us you're not coming and we'll cancel it at that point. But we don't want a student to, because there is a point through the summer where if they're not accepted, or if they haven't accepted their aid and they haven't enrolled, we will cancel their scholarships that we've awarded them and give them to somebody else. So we don't want a student to lose an opportunity. So we're really pushing for, if you are on the fence about anything, accept it across the board. That way you've still got that spot saved for you should you decide to come.
Lovely.
That's how we're operating. Not all may do that, but that is how we're operating, because we don't want students to miss out.
That's lovely. That's music to my ears.
Thanks, Amy. That's really interesting. And I love that, you change a word and it it really changes the, we know what the priority deadline is because we deal with it, but those words mean different things.
We literally said in meetings and faculty said, what do you mean there's no longer a deadline? We said there was never a deadline. It was
There never was. Yeah.
But that is how they even heard it. And so that opened our eyes. If you're hearing it this way, we know our students in first gen families are definitely hearing a deadline.
For sure. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Anything else for Erica? Excellent discussion. Thanks everybody for trying to help Erica work through this. And
yes,
we're here to support you, and know that this is going to be, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting.
Yay. Thank you all. Erica. I really do appreciate, I love our, the collaboration, the discussions. I look forward, if there's anyone that would ever like to reach out to me directly, by all means, you can ask the committee for my contact information. It should be in our email. So idea sharing or vent, it's all good. Thank you all.
Thanks, Erica. I think we're going to adjust the agenda just a little bit. Our presenters for what I think is agenda item 14 are here, and we're very excited to hear their presentation, and then we will come back to the student financial aid programs update. Teresa and or Sophia, I'm going to turn it over to you. I understand you'll give us your own introductions. Just want to thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Hold on. There we go. All right. So let me, oops. So since you can let me share my screen when you have a chance. Let me see if it'll let me do it now. Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, my name is Sophia McGee, and today I'll be presenting with Teresa Washburn. I am a manager at San Jacinto College North. And Teresa, you can give your little introduction. She has a much better introduction than me.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Teresa Washburn. I am a financial aid coordinator here at Houston Community College Northeast, and very excited for this presentation. Been in financial aid now for about 23 years, and Sophia and I work well and collaborate together. So we're excited to present to you Hanging On Through the Turbulence.
All right. So today I would like to get started by giving you our objectives. So today we're going to try to understand what burnout is and how you can interpret some signs and symptoms that you may not have been aware of previously. We'll talk about some strategies that may work for you in the way you structure your work-life balance, harmony. And we'll also talk about some actions you can take to integrate things into your daily life that can help you get things on track. And we'll touch on self-care as well, which is very important in this day and age. And I would like to start off with a poll. What you can do is text Sophia McGee 929 to the number 22333. And have you ever experienced burnout on the job? You can respond with either an A for yes or a B for no. And this is just a temperature check to see kind of where everybody is at the moment. So I'll give you a few minutes to send in your response. What is it doing?
Is it working? I just sent mine. Did it work?
Okay. Oh, it should be holding.
It's working.
Oh, there it goes. I was worried too. I was like, no, what did I do?
Look at the lane.
Ooh, so far it's 100% yes. I appreciate the honesty. I made it anonymous, just in case. Awesome. So no. So it seems like we've all experienced it at least one time in our professional life. Hopefully it's not now, but if it is now, we're going to have some good information for you that you can use to implement starting today to make your balance or your integration a little bit better. Okay, so with that being said, when we mentioned turbulence in our title, turbulence is really the things that attack you or come at you every day. Sometimes it's out of your control. And just like when you're on a plane, when all that turbulence hits, it's kind of rocky. It can get chaotic. It can be light turbulence. It can be heavy turbulence. But when this turbulence hits you, sometimes it can hit you so much that you kind of free spin out of control. And that then leads to burnout. And what burnout is defined as is a form of exhaustion caused by the constant feeling of being swamped or overwhelmed, and it's most often associated with work. It's usually characterized by the feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from your job, or feelings of negativity or cynicism towards your job. And it also reduces professional efficiency. And turbulence can be a lot of things. I've listed a few here. Lack of control of things, FAFSA for one. That's going to be a big cause of burnout during the upcoming months. And I'm so worried about January that I'm sure you are all on the same page with me. Unclear job expectations, dysfunctional work dynamics. That's a big one. Unmanageable workloads, confusing work responsibilities. All these things can lead to burnout, which can cause a lot of different things, both mentally, physically, with your body. So some of these signs that you can look out for, not only for yourself, but some of your colleagues or your staff members, if they're feeling, like I mentioned before, tired or exhausted, or they're not concentrating, they're coming in late constantly with, no real good excuse. Their performance has reduced. You may have a lot of people quitting. I do know right after COVID, in that post-COVID life, a lot of people struggled with that work-life balance because we were so used to doing everything remote and everything was at home. So you were working at home, you were living at home. So once we came back, there was a big exodus of not only in financial aid, but in a lot of different areas, because a lot of people were burnt out. And that led to a lot of feelings of frustration and loss of enthusiasm, and which led to eventual quitting. So these signs and symptoms, they usually put them into 3 categories. Overload, that's when there's a lot of those too in our office, when you're just constantly working harder and harder and harder, and you're just so frantic in your pursuit of success and professional growth, that you kind of take on too much and you feel overwhelmed, and you do so much, sometimes at a risk of your health and your personal life, because you feel you have to succeed at your job. There's others where they're feeling under challenged when they don't feel appreciated, or they're bored, or there's no opportunities for growth and there's no professional development offered, and they feel a little under challenged. Or there's even neglect when people kind of feel helpless and you feel like you're incompetent or unable to keep up. And that's where a lot of imposter syndrome falls in this area. So those are some things that you can, if you haven't thought about before, it's leading to burnout. Those things can affect you. And so you need to think about a few things. Here are some questions that you can ask yourself to kind of start questioning if maybe I am feeling burnout, even if I thought I wasn't, or maybe I noticed my staff member is, showing a little of these signs. They could be feeling burnout. It may be time to meet and, offer some suggestions. So think about, do you drag yourself to work in the morning? Do you have trouble getting started? Have you become irritable or impatient with, students, staff members? Do you find it difficult to stay productive? Do you just wish to kind of push everything aside and procrastinate and do something else instead of worrying about what needs to get done? Do you not care about the quality of your performance or your outcome? Or do you lack satisfaction even when you do achieve something with your employment? Some theories that people like to mention when it comes to that harmony between work and life balance. That's kind of like the big one that everybody knows about, work-life balance. I actually struggled with that when I was putting together the presentation because I kept wanting to put work-life balance because that's kind of what you hear. But that's really only one theory. With work-life balance, it's where your time between doing your job and living your life there's a definite boundary between those things. So in theory, when you think about it that way, if you need to do a little bit more work or it demands more, then your personal life shrinks to accommodate what all you need to do with your work and vice versa. So balance is kind of just one theory. I've been seeing a lot more on integration. Now, integration, I'm still wrapping my head around this. I think it's hard for me. This also falls under, in my mind, multitasking, which we all know is really impossible. But with work-life integration, this is more of a synergistic blending of your personal and professional responsibilities. So it's from this perspective, work is just one aspect of your life that needs to be considered along with everything else, such as your home, your personal life, your health, your personal well-being. So it's more of a holistic framework. But it just kind of depends on your personality, which one would work better with you. For me, work-life balance works best because I can't multitask. I don't really have a strong attention span. So I need to have a definite boundary and I need to have my lists of what I need to do at work and what I need to do at home. But there's different theories that you can look into that may work best for you. Don't think that it's a one size fits all kind of thing. You just have to work with what works for you. And why is having this balance important? Not only is it a key part of having a healthy and productive work environment, but it promotes improved physical and mental health. You become more of a well-rounded individual. It helps to minimize stress. It increases your productivity and engagement at work. So it benefits your work as well as benefiting your home life. And some of those characteristics of a healthy work-life balance, my little comic strips here. I thought these were so interesting. But some characteristics of a healthy work-life balance involves setting those boundaries, establishing those clear boundaries between work and personal life. So leaning on that work-life balance if you need it, or you can have, effective time management if you have better skills doing the integrated, efficiently organizing and prioritizing your tasks to make sure that enough time is allocated for each item. And also implementing some stress management skills, such as practicing mindfulness or engaging in regular physical activity and not just sitting on the couch like I do. And also being flexible, being willing to adjust your schedule when needed. And so with all of these things in mind, we're going to roll over now into some tips on self-care for a safe landing by my esteemed colleague, Miss Teresa Washburn, and she's going to discuss some of those things for you.
Okay, so Sophia has successfully identified so many of the things that we all struggle with. And if we're honest about it, it becomes less problematic and it decreases our anxiety, because the first thing is to acknowledge that we actually go through these things. So one of the unique things at the conference that we were able to collaborate with all of our many colleagues is the fact that, yes, we do go through burnout. Yes, we do experience these things, but just as in a successful flight, we also want to follow some of those processes for us to be well. So fastening your seatbelt when the pilot speaks over the speaker gives you a sense of comfort and gives you a sense of security. So self-care in the same works well as it relates to a safe landing. Our job requires so much, and I know the THECB experiences the same things that we experience in our offices as we recruit, as we speak to our students. I was listening to some of the challenges that we're all going to face as we roll into the 24-25, and we want to know if we're realistic. We want to know if we're prioritizing our goals properly, if we are not only doing these things for our students, but for the parents and for our staff and for ourselves. So I want to offer a few things for you to think about. It is important that you set daily goals. I know we're busy being parents and teachers and mentors and employees and leaders, and we're busy being everything sometimes except for who we were purposed in this life to be, and that is one, to be ourselves. And sometimes we lose track and we lose focus because we lose ourselves in the whole process. We have to learn to exercise and meditate on some things, and whatever way you choose to do that, it may be a simple walk, it may be a stretch, it may be, as my ophthalmologist says, to look up in the sky and focus on something that allows you to project the vast universe as opposed to our small lives that we're experiencing. And then we also need to learn the art of no. The art of no is not a negative suggestion. Saying no, as we've grown up over the years, we've learned that we can say no, but oftentimes we fear saying no because we don't want to be taken in a negative connotation. We don't want to make others uncomfortable, but really it would put us in a state of less stress. There are times that you can just simply say, I'm already overwhelmed, or I'm overextended right now, and I'm not going to be able to meet that deadline. There are other times, if you're like me, I blame my spouse when I'm at home. My husband has already set something up for us, and I'm not going to be able to meet the appointment or the deadline. So there are various ways that you can be pleasant, but still master the art of no. And we will give you those resources at the end. It's a very, very good book for reading. Also, it's important that we let go of our perfectionism. In the world of financial aid and in the world of finance, we want to solve everyone's problems, and we want to make sure that we have perfection in every aspect of our lives. And then we leave our work, and then we go home, and then we want to be the perfect parent, or we want to be the perfect spouse, because we don't want to short our home life and allow our work life to overtake that. So sometimes we have to cut ourselves some slack. We give ourselves positive affirmations every day. I am enough. We know all of the cliches that have now come across all the different social media platforms. And we want to say those things to ourselves. And we are enough. We're enough for this arena and that arena, but you have to cut yourself some slack. And you have to know that the work that you have purposed, if you've done your best, it is your best and it is good enough. And sometimes that just allows you to breathe in and say, okay, I'm good today. I can move on to my next project. And Sophia talked just a little bit about multitasking. That's not realistic. We've all experience the fact that we will give attention to one thing more than we will another, but to say that we're equally able to do it together is overextending ourselves, is stressing our mind, and is stressing our body. And sometimes it leaves us feeling defeated. So try to minimize the thought of multitasking. So in the next slide, I want to talk just a little bit about just being a change agent. You know, we hear that in our professional lives, and we talk about being a change agent for our goals in life and work, but we can be change agents in both home and work. We can be mindful of the examples that we are setting. One of the things that is an eye-opener for me is my granddaughter. She always brings me back to reality. And she told me during COVID, she says, I'm so excited that you have time to spend with me. Let's go to the park. And I said, I'm at work. She said, no, you're not. You're here at home. And she did not realize that my work had overflown into the home life. So I had to be mindful, and I had to stop and take some breaks. And I had to actually set her good examples for her, because I don't want her to take on that stressful lifestyle or situation. You always need to encourage restorative time. There has to be a time, preferably every day at the same time, if you will, to have a time to shut down and restore, to rethink. Stephen Covey talked a lot about being an effective manager, and he said you need to stop at some point in the day, plan the next day, and do something totally different. Set your calendar up and then do something totally different. And that means even planning your delegation. We have wonderful support staff and administrators, but we still want to take on all of the challenges. We have board members that are more than willing to take on some of our tasks, but because we have put on our superhero shields, we don't delegate. We don't look at the various resources sometimes that are available for us to make our work and life a lot easier. And then mentoring. Typically, I try to tap into my mentor at least once a week, because she helps me regroup and refocus. And she helps me look at my accomplishments and be grateful for the things that I have accomplished and take those things off the list so I can proceed with the other items that may be on there. Professional development is huge. People have taken so much time to put our development together, but oftentimes we find ourselves waiting to the last minute. Let's hurry up and listen to the video and get the credit. But if we look at it, it would really, really be helpful in our day-to-day tasks. Time management is huge for me, because I also facilitate class experiences in workforce. And I learned really quickly that time management is the only thing really that I have control over. I can set an allotted amount of time, but I have to stick to it. And sometimes we forget to set that slot of time, stick to it, and say, you know, that's my time, and now I have to go. We want to just keep going. And then never be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a huge sign of strength. And then the most important thing, take a break at some point during the day. And I don't mean a cup of coffee thrown back just before your next board meeting, or just before your next one-on-one, or just before your next student encounter. I mean, really take a break. Go take a 5-minute walk, set your watch, walk 5 minutes and refresh, breathe in and get your oxygen flowing. I promise you, that will help you be the best change agent that your organization has ever seen. As we look at home life, I talked a little bit about it, but I do want to say these things. Now that we're totally back here at HCC, we are totally back in the office. We still have to unplug, make time for those who love you so much and watch you be the best that you can be, and they support you. Sometimes we're a little bit hard on our spouses because we just don't want to hear it. Sometimes we go home, we just don't want to talk. But be supportive, unplug enough from work, shut down. Since you haven't overcommitted, make time for family time. If it's just getting back to a dinner at the table, remove all social media, remove all electronics, shut them down, and have a conversation at the table. Your family, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren will see a new you. Get support from your family because they love what you do. They know who you are. And whether they say it or not, they're your biggest supporters. And I really believe family is everything. One of the things that I love here at HCC is we have a great employee assistance program, and it's free. And I try to tell all my staff, it is free. Use it. We have a mental health awareness organization that we have just recently delved into and become certified to identify some mental health awareness and some signs of mental health challenges that some people may be going through. And oftentimes we see certain mental health concerns, but it's the subtle ones that we don't see. Make sure you check on the coworker that silently works all by themselves, gets things done, but never expresses concern. It's always important to check on your silent colleague. And then treat your body right. Get help if you need it. Exercise we talk about, but food is everything. And I've learned that I have to reduce caffeine. I am a coffee guru connoisseur. I think I can drink coffee every day, all day, and then still go to sleep. But I'm punishing my body, so I need to get away from that. So when I'm at home, I've made a vow now. I won't drink coffee at home. I only drink coffee at work, and not all day. Then when we go into the work, we have to manage our goals. We set them, but make sure they're manageable. 1 or 2 is okay. I typically try at the beginning of the year to set long-term and short-term goals. And just like the travel plans that we make and the things that we do that we talked about during the turbulent times, you know, we set up these great things, but we don't set up the goal for just in case we don't accomplish it. We should have a plan B always. And sometimes plan A really is plan B, and we know it, but we don't want to accept it. Then we should be very tuned in, not with so much of what's going on around us, because we have calendars and support and coworkers and administrators to help us with that. But we need to be tuned in with how tuned in we really are. And that requires us to communicate. Oftentimes, and especially when we are leaders, we think we're communicating. But if we take a look at how we have communicated to our peers and how we have given them information, if we think about, did they receive the message, or would I have received the message? There are times that we can make adjustments. And then again, take your breaks. So as we bring this really to a close, there's not a whole lot of new things that I'm suggesting that you look at, but I do suggest that you look at resources and take advantage of the resources that are available. As we go into the FAFSA simplifications and the TASFA online and trying to communicate with our students, I think we need to take the approach of, how would I want this information to be given to me? Typically in this environment, it's very stressful for parents because sometimes they don't understand. And sometimes their students are first generation and they are so proud and want this accomplishment to be secured and completed that we push them a little faster than we should. So knowing that simplifying some of the things in financial aid, we're going to have to make sure that we simplify our processes and that we speak clear and that we are concise with our information, and then that we are consistent with the information. It will make us less stressful, and it will make our parents and our students less stressful. So I want to go, this next slide is really a quiz that we actually participated in at the conference. And we've delivered this presentation a couple of other times, and this will give me a chance to stop talking. But if you think that you're practicing self-care, this is an eye-opener. Now, I want to preface this because this is actually on loveisrespect.org, and it's about relationships. In addition, their website is about relationships, unhealthy and healthy, but this particular quiz is applicable for self-care. And what it will do, if you will please, go to loveisrespect.org/quiz. And if you will, just take this quiz because it will identify some things that you really don't know about yourself, or maybe you do, but your score will surprise you. So I want you to take a moment to just go on and just do your own little quiz. I think we have about 3 minutes, and we're going to share this presentation with you, and you can come back and look at your score on a later date because I know that your board is requiring a particular time. Look at your score and look at this screen later and see if you're actually going through some burnout or if you're practicing self-care. If you are not practicing self-care, let me encourage you, as our breaks are coming up and as we realign for our new year, let me encourage you to look at some of these resources, look at your score when the presentation is given to you, and tap into your EAP, your employee assistance plan, excuse me. If your score is not what you thought it was or what you think it should be, take some time and breathe. And for me, breathe means something totally different. Become the person that I always wanted to be, but with certain limitations. Respect others' time, not just my own. And then being available also means sometimes that I need to have some side assistance. Learn the art of no. And look at Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know the book is old, but the book is great. And sometimes revisiting it will allow you to see some of the things that you've gotten away from that worked well for you early on in your career. And then we introduced some yoga at your desk, which is always nice. It's actually about 5 to 6 minutes. They have a couple of different ones that you can explore on YouTube. And 3 minutes of mindful meditation is always good for you to refocus and get rid of the fog sometimes. So those are the resources, Goodreads, and the quiz that I wanted to offer. I hope I haven't bored you with my presentation, but I really want us to understand that we are good. We're doing much, much better. We're being helpful and we're being resourceful to our students and our staff and our families, but we also have to think about ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We can't clap because we're virtual.
I know, everybody just clap and they won't hear you, but they'll see you moving. Teresa, Sophia, I can't thank you enough for sharing this with us. I heard your presentation recently at another conference and immediately thought of this group of hardworking, stressed out people. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time. This is an extra thing to add to your plate, and we are just so grateful. And we do have the presentation to share. I think it was in the handouts that we sent out before the meeting, but if it wasn't, we'll absolutely get that out to everybody. But thank you again, Teresa and Sophia. Really, really appreciate you helping us out today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.
You. Y'all too.
Don't forget to take a break.
That's right.
Holidays.
Okay. That was fantastic information. I think we will go now. We're going to backtrack to Deshay, to our student financial aid programs update.
Well, that's a hard spell coming
I
right
know.
off,
I could only do that to you, Deshay. I'm sorry.
Now I'll be very quick then, just so we can be mindful of the time and the agenda schedule that we have in front of us. So I'll just give a really quick update on the Office of Student Financial Aid Programs and kind of what's been happening since the last time we met as a committee. Couple of things. We've definitely have been pretty busy with hiring and promoting within student financial aid programs. We just recently promoted Cindy Mars into our Director 1 position over our loan repayment team, which Charles talked about earlier when he was introducing the proposed rules. That is a team that works with working professionals. Cindy has about more than 25 years of experience in a variety of roles with financial aid administration. She was a financial aid coordinator at UT Austin before moving into a consultant position at what we know as Trellis Company. And then the last 4 years, she actually has been leading our compliance team within student financial aid programs. So she joined the SFAP operations team as at Director 1 back in October. So super excited about that. In addition, we have a new Deputy Assistant Commissioner, Jeremiah Gerald. He started with us on August 1st, and he is actually leading our innovation team, and that oversees quality, compliance, and data reporting. So we're really excited about him coming on board with us. I think most of y'all know that student financial aid programs was kind of broken up into 3 kind of segmented areas. One is policy, which our infamous Leah Smalley oversees that area as senior director. The second one is the SFAP operations, which I was promoted to oversee all the operations of SFAP. And then that third one that I just mentioned about innovation, which Jeremiah Gerald is overseeing. So we're really excited about kind of the reorganization of the division and a lot of great things that we have to come because of that. So just really quickly, I just want to give up some recent memos that were sent out of that area, and then also upcoming memos, deadlines, and past deadlines if you have yet completed certain items. So recently we sent out a memo on November 27th about the state work study Title III eligibility. So if you hadn't seen that memo, you can look at all of our memos on our student financial aid Student Financial Aid Programs webpage under State Connect. So we sent out that on November 27th, as well as on November 27th, we sent out another memo related to our license plate insignia program for our organizations. On November 13th, we sent out the grant and aid processing platform and the payment process, so you have a better idea as to what to expect when you are receiving your funds. If you haven't received any funds recently that you believe you should have already received based on that timeline, then feel free to definitely reach out to us so we can check on that. We will be sending out an upcoming spring 24 institutional calendar with all of the dates that are going to go from January to April. And we have a lot of great stuff that you'll want to look at and just plug in onto your own calendar. And then we'll also send out the 23-24 FAD manual, as well as the 24-25 award amounts. One of the upcoming deadlines that you all have is for that state Title III eligibility form that's due on December 11th. So that is just on Monday, so around the corner, if you haven't already submitted that form. And then we still have a couple of outstanding items for this calendar year for 23 that we're asking institutions to get in before they leave out for the holidays, and that's user access. If you haven't completed that, we still have about 11 schools missing that user access review, and that was due back in November 10th. And then also, if you have yet to certify your FAD 3 cycle for 22-23, which was due on November 13th, we still have about 32 schools that have yet to certify as of today. So keep in mind that if you are past due on anything, that we do place a hold on any of your state financial aid funds. So if you log on to GAP and you're unable to request any funds, you'll have to contact us in case you don't know what past due item that you have that's outstanding. So I just kind of want to remind people that it's pretty important to try to get those things in so you can continue to request your funding, since all of the programs are in GAP, which also include work study, which was a big change. There's no longer that lump sum of funds, so you do have to request work study. I know I constantly say that because I do think that has still been one of the challenges for a lot of schools, and you do have to set it up because it is going through your local banks. So it's not going through your state treasury for those schools who are used to setting things up through the state treasury. So wanted to kind of put that plug in as well. But as far as everything else goes for state financial aid programs, we're just rocking and rolling. As you've heard, all of the great presentations earlier of all the great things that we're doing in that division. So happy to take any questions if you all have any. I think that was 5 minutes. I'm telling you, I was trying to keep up. Be time efficient.
All right. Any questions for Deshay? Thank you, Deshay. We appreciate your update. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm just going to just spend a couple of minutes talking about the FAAC annual report. This is something that is compiled every year. Deshay was gracious enough to put this together for us this year, and it basically outlines what you have in the packet. The first sort of page and a half is really sort of a summary of what the FAAC has been up to, all of the great work that we have done. There are sections for each of the subcommittees and what their work has been on, things they've accomplished over the last year. This report will be shared with the Innovation, Data, and Educational Analytics, I hope I got that right, committee in January at state level, and then we'll go to the THCCB board for their review and approval later in January. And I was not always aware of this, so I just want to share. Some of you, I'm sure, already know, but this committee, every 4 years, the THCCB board reviews this committee to see if it is still effective, if we're going to continue it, if it's still something that's creating value. And so one of the tools that they use to make that determination is are these annual reports. And so it's really important that we use this to sort of brag on ourselves a little bit and be sure that we're including all of the things that we produce and conversations that we have that really go towards all of our goals of providing access to higher education and eliminating barriers for students. It really is a record of our interactions with the FAAC's interactions with the coordinating board and sort of what the outcome or purpose of those interactions are. I'll let you read through it yourself. It is very well put together. It won't take you, a couple of minutes, but it's a really interesting. It brought back to mind when I read through it. It brought back to mind a lot of, a lot of the initiatives that were accomplished this year, and I think that's always good to review when we're thinking about what our future plans, what we want our future plans to look like. The next time that the board, just FYI, the next time that this committee will be reviewed to make sure that it's still effective and should continue is October of 25, I think. Leah, correct me if I am on the wrong date there. But so this is part of, like I said, part of what they will review when they get to that point. So I encourage you to look through that when you have time. Next on the agenda, I just want to get any feedback that you all have for future meetings. And I know, this may not be the perfect place to do that in terms of putting you on the spot to do that right now, but I really would encourage you to let me and Leah know if you have ideas for discussion topics, things that you want to see this committee take on or discuss or bring out. It can be anything that our subcommittees might, be interested in, but it doesn't have to be. So just anything that you can think of that would be sort of for the greater good and would affect institutions across our state as well as our high school partners. So think about that. The presentation that we just had that was so excellent came from, some of us seeing that presentation at the TASFA-SWASFA Joint Conference recently. So that's one way to, come up with ideas for what to bring to this group. So if you've seen a great presentation, if you've done a great presentation in the last few months and you want to, you would like to see this group be exposed to that, please reach out to me. I do not expect, and Leah does not expect you to do the work of, contacting the presenter and finding a time and all of that stuff. That's we'll do that work. Just give us the idea so we can have that feedback that is something that you would find valuable. So if you have feedback or ideas, please don't hesitate to send those to myself or Leah. Let's see. I think we have our meeting dates figured out. Just one more time. March 7th, we agreed on, June the 6th, September the 12th, and December 5th. So that gets all of those hopefully on your calendar. I think Leah said they would be, Renee and would be sending out the meeting invites early in the new year. So that will, I don't know about y'all, but that really helps me to not mess up and miss one of those. Is there anything else, Leah, anything else you would like to add before we adjourn? Or anything I've forgotten?
No, I mean, on the future meetings, if we want to open it up, not to pick on Heather, but I was talking to her yesterday. She's like, maybe I'll bring it up. No pressure if you want to hold off. Y'all can always email or connect with either Millette or myself if you're like, doing something and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could get some other input from other schools or, get this as a future item. You can just shoot us an email and then we can always call you to discuss it further so we know what you're trying to accomplish. But It does get very challenging when you're trying to make sure that you're keeping the committee engaged and finding topics that are helpful, because y'all are the ones that are at the schools. And so sometimes when we're coming up with the topics, it can get very repetitive. And so we're trying to make sure that we're addressing things that are actually useful. So again, didn't mean to call anybody out, but if you want to speak up and bring it up on today's meeting, awesome. If you prefer to shoot out an email, we can do it that way. So just definitely, especially coming off the holidays and starting to prepare for next meeting, this is probably going to be the harder one, is to come up with the March topics. So feel free to throw some our way.
Yeah, I'll actually be emailing y'all. I need to talk. There's another school that reached out to me asking some questions, and I need to get some more information. But I do. It's related to Cal and manageable loan debt and all that stuff. So I'd like to get some more information, but I will be emailing Millette and Leah because I think it does warrant some talks, I guess, seeing how other schools are handling it. What if the coordinating board has any data about like how the processing time is going for reviewing manageable loan debt, that type of stuff. So I think that would be beneficial.
Awesome.
That sounds great, Heather. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Would you also want some type of presentation as well to kind of go over it? I know we did a training couple of months back specifically on it, but I don't know how much everyone has actually seen it. So
yeah, I don't know. I need to, like I said, I need to reach out to this other school that had reached out to me to see what their question or their concern is specifically. I am always a proponent for more training. I think the more we see something, the better. So I don't think it would hurt to show that information again, just to remind people that this is the process. I think with everything that's been going on this year, there's been so many changes that it's hard to keep everything straight and hard to keep everything in the forefront of your mind. So I don't think that would be a bad idea to Shay.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And I think, we talked about it and we've seen it, we've talked about it a number of times in a few different ways, but it was several months ago. And so, if there's new data, if there's new information that now that it's sort of been in existence for a while, I think it's a great idea to revisit and just make sure everybody understands what's happening. And Heather, if there are, particular concerns about processing time or about procedure, I think this is a great time to talk about those things. Awesome. All right. Anything else? Anyone have anything else to suggest for next meeting or anything else for the good of the group? I really appreciate everyone's engagement today, staying with us. This is a long span of time to sit still and listen and think, to make your brain work without any, significant breaks. So really, really appreciate everyone taking the time to do that. If there's nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So I'm sorry to do this. I do have one suggestion, one question. Is for guidance for schools for single term awarding once we're on SAI, when it comes to set aside grants and Texas grant, because we know we are not going to be able to prorate SAI. And so I'm hoping that maybe the coordinating board would be able to, because I know some of that is set by them regarding our set aside, and Texas grant is some kind of guidance or help for what we do for our students that are graduating in the fall. I know we're all worried about that. So
yeah, that's an excellent question. So unlike the EFC, where we can prorate for a certain number of months to reflect the time the student will actually be attending that year, we cannot do that with the SAI, at least not through the federal system. So it's going to change that dynamic of how we award a student who is not attending the full school year. Awesome.
Yeah, and Beth, I would just say email me and
okay. I will do that.
And that way we can, after the holidays, we can mull it over.
I know.
Yeah,
My
for sure.
vacation starts in like T-minus 8 days. So I'm like, how much can I get done in the next week or so before I'm out?
Well,
self-help or whatever.
That's right. Take the time. Take the time. Be mindful.
Yes.
All good words. If anyone have anything else, happy to hear any suggestions or thoughts.
One quick thing, and maybe this is will be relevant more for the, like, maybe it's the June meeting, or maybe there'll be enough info for March. But with the change in the federal aid form, I think, because you've got such a big change happening from the institutional perspective, but also from the student perspective, if there are common challenges or glitches or whatever that this group could identify for the Department of Education to try to address as they get ready for the new application.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think by June, we will probably be ready to talk about it in a big way. We'll be ready to talk about it in March, I would imagine. But I think, I think you're right, Gilbert. Probably by June, we'll have a good, few months under our belts of seeing where these hangups are. And no doubt they'll be different for different populations, but that's why the diversity in this group is so great. We can help each other out with what we're seeing. So that's a great suggestion. Anything else? I want to thank Renee specifically for running the show and making sure I stay where I'm supposed to be at all times. And I really, really appreciate you, Renee. You do an excellent job and make all this really possible. So I really do appreciate what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Good job, Renee. And she's going to go home now. I'm just kidding.
I would if I were her, for sure.
And I'm done. I'm just kidding. Y'all have a wonderful upcoming holiday. See you next year. And
let me get a motion to adjourn.
Oh no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, what?
That's all right. That's okay.
I move we adjourn.
All right. And a second.
I second, Rochelle.
All right. Thanks, Rochelle. All right, everybody, we are adjourned. Have a wonderful, safe holiday season. And I hope everyone gets a little bit of rest because January and February are going to be great.
Bye. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Blessed holiday break, everybody.